I'm a DC superhero in Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76 The Thief Cries Thief. The next day, Anton came to the Daily Bugle. At this time, Eddie and April had been waiting for him in his office for almost an hour. There was nothing he could do. The boss had the privilege of being late. Anton, I called April for you. What do you want to ask her? Eddie looked at Anton curiously. Thinking of what Anton had described to him last night, Eddie felt that this incident would be very interesting. April, you have investigated the Bigfoot gang for a long time. Tell me, why did the Bigfoot gang rob Osborn's chemicals? Anton asked an old question. Stupid people would think that the Bigfoot gang robbed them and sold them on the black market because these chemicals and materials are very valuable. But smart people know that the Bigfoot gang would not offend Osborn for such a small amount of money. April hesitated and said, Oscorp has been purchasing chemicals in large quantities recently. Many rare materials are rarely seen on the market. Even the black market prices have risen several times, and some are simply not available. The Bigfoot gang may not be able to find the materials from the black market channels, so they decided to rob them openly. So, the Bigfoot gang is doing some chemical experiments on biological genes. They are in urgent need of these materials? Anton asked. I don't know. All I know about the Bigfoot gang is the name and the bad things they have done. April shook her head. I know nothing about the inside story of the Bigfoot gang. Anton asked again, have you heard of Shredder? April continued to shake her head. No. Okay. Anton sighed and looked at Eddie. Did you learn more through your own channels? Shredder seems to be a martial arts master who is known as a ninja and has his own dojo in Brooklyn, New York. Eddie said. However, this person rarely shows up. The only thing that is certain is that he has a close relationship with the Sykes Company. Because the person who passed the message to me has seen the founder of the Sykes Company, Eric Sykes, go to the dojo in Brooklyn to visit the ninja master many times. April couldn't help but add a sentence after hearing the conversation between the two. Sykes recently signed some cooperation agreements with the New York Police Department. The New York Police Department will use the technology of Sykes to help the task force fight against New York gangs, especially the Bigfoot gang, which has been particularly active recently. She paused and explained, this is the content of the morning news on Channel 6 today. Sounds good. Anton went over the known information in his mind and combined it with the original plot to roughly sort out a reasonable thread. Eddie, April, if I tell you that the mastermind behind the Bigfoot gang is this Shredder, do you still think Sykes is just? As soon as this sentence came out, Eddie and April opened their eyes wide and showed incredible expressions. This morning, the news was still saying that Sykes and the New York Police Department task force had reached a cooperation with the purpose of fighting crime. As a result, now Anton turned around and told them that the mastermind behind the Bigfoot gang is called Shredder, and Shredder has a close relationship with Sykes. Is Sykes crying thief? Eric Sykes grew up in Japan and came to New York with his adoptive father when he was a teenager. After graduating from college, he founded Sykes Corporation. To date, Sykes Corporation has become a large enterprise spanning multiple fields. Anton turned on his computer and checked the basic information about Eric Sykes on the internet, which matched the memory of the original plot in his mind one by one. He said, Sykes' adoptive father is Shredder. So, they are really crying thief. Eddie took a breath. He didn't doubt Anton's conclusion at all. Since they met, Anton has never let him down. Although he likes to be lazy sometimes, when encountering problems, he knows that he can have absolute trust in Anton. Big news. Eddie's eyes lit up, looking at April who looked dazed beside him, and suddenly surprised. April, are you okay? Is Eric Sykes really a bad guy? April hesitated, but I thought he was a good person when I was a child. It doesn't match what you just said at all. Your father used to work for Sykes. Anton asked, but there was a fire in the institute, and in the end your father and all the experimental results were burned. Afterwards, Sykes closed the institute and sealed the research, right? You investigated me. April was shocked. She was a little annoyed, opened her eyes wide, looked at Anton and said, "Anton, what do you mean? I thought we were friends." "April, don't get me wrong." Anton shrugged and said, "People in our business always keep a few tricks up their sleeves." He investigated nothing, purely based on the original plot, and revealed April O'Neil's identity. "Eddie, help me investigate the Bigfoot gang." After Anton finished speaking, he looked at April and said, "Friendly reminder, what you told us at the bar last night about the new superheroes appearing in New York is correct. They are 4 talking turtles dressed as ninjas. I think this has something to do with your father's research. It may be the result of Psyche's previous experiments." "Turtles?" April was stunned and seemed to think of something and became excited. "Yes, it's the turtles. I saved them on the day of the fire in the institute. So, my father's research was successful? They didn't fail." "Anton, April and I will investigate the Bigfoot gang. What about you?" Eddie was curious. "I still have things to do." Anton gave Eddie a look, calmly. "I haven't had time to deal with yesterday's troubles." "I see. You have to be careful. Leave the Bigfoot gang to us." Eddie nodded, thinking. Then, he and April left Anton's office. Anton watched the two leave, turned around, and searched for the latest news about Oscorp on the computer. After a moment, he found that there was no part about biological genes in the experimental plan recently announced by Osborn. So why did Osborn buy chemicals related to biological gene research? Is Osborn doing some mysterious experiments behind the scenes that are not convenient to announce? Anton thought of the genetic disease of the Osborn family. He also thought that on the second night of the Lizard Man incident, Kurt Connors was rescued from the way to prison. It can almost be concluded that the one who rescued Connors was Norman Osborn. He wanted to rely on Connors' research to cure his family's genetic disease. Obviously, Norman Osborn succeeded. At the same time, he also failed. He may have successfully cured his family's genetic disease, but he became schizophrenic because of it, and gave birth to a violent second personality, the Green Goblin. Chapter 77, Lizard Man again. Since traveling through time, Anton has not had much contact with Norman Osborn, but the latter left a good impression on him. Although he is shrewd, he knows when to advance and retreat, and has the style of a successful entrepreneur. The point is that Norman is very generous. Secondly, his son Harry Osborn is a polite person and a fan of Batman. Considering the family's genetic disease, Anton can understand Norman's approach, but it must be admitted that after Norman became schizophrenic and turned into the Green Goblin, he became another person, no longer the Norman Osborn that everyone is familiar with. Norman Osborn and the Green Goblin state has a very rapid growth of negative emotions. Except for his family, that is, Harry Osborn, he has almost no other positive emotions. There are only terrorist activities such as destruction and crime in his mind. Anton dare not really treat the Green Goblin as Norman Osborn. In view of their past friendship and Harry Osborn as an investor in his film, he can help Norman expel the negative personality in his mind after subduing Norman, but before that, he will definitely do his best to capture Norman in the form of the Green Goblin. The revenge of the pumpkin bomb yesterday must be avenged. Anton can be cowardly, but Batman can't be. After thinking for a while, Anton left the Daily Bugle and drove to the Continental Hotel. "Mr. Jameson, we meet again." The black guy at the front desk was not as panicked as last time when he saw Anton. "Now everyone is a family." He nodded slightly. "Mr. Winston is in the office. I will tell him you are here." "Yeah." Anton didn't stop and went straight to Winston's office. "Anton, long time no see." Winston took the initiative to greet him at the door and smiled. Since cooperating with Anton to bring down Kingpin, the High Table's sphere of influence has covered Hell's Kitchen, and the status of the Continental Hotel has risen. Now it has covered the entire New York area. Most of the professional killers in the New York area have registered with the Continental Hotel. Most of the unregistered ones are small minions who are not in the mainstream and no one cares. In addition, killers across the United States respect the Continental Hotel. Under such circumstances, the Continental Hotel has almost become a recognized killer association in the United States. And the controller of the Continental Hotel, Winston, is the president of the Killer Association. Winston will not forget that all this was brought by Anton. Although the two had some unpleasant experiences, as long as the ending was good, the process was not important at all. Besides, Anton was Batman. In the current American Empire, no one could ignore the existence of Batman. Winston, I heard from Night Demon that the High Table has been developing well recently. Anton simply said a pleasantry and said, I came to you for Osborn. Through the intelligence network of the High Table, I want you to help me find out where the chemical products that Osborn recently purchased were finally sent to. Osborn? Winston was a little surprised. He knew Anton's public identity. As a genius director and the behind-the-scenes boss of the Daily Bugle, Anton had a good relationship with Norman Osborn. Why would he suddenly want to investigate Osborn? Wait a minute, I'll help you figure it out. Winston didn't ask any more questions. The nature of his work made him less curious about problems. Once he asked one more question, he might cause more than one trouble. There are many of our people among the porters near the dock. This is not a question that cannot be answered. After Winston finished speaking, he made a phone call and answered it quickly. Osborn Manor. He said, those chemicals were sent to Norman Osborn's own manor, just outside New York. You should know the exact location without me telling you. Got it? Anton nodded to Winston and said, the Bigfoot gang is going to be in trouble recently. If the High Table also has ideas about Brooklyn, you can seize the opportunity to enter. Oh. Winston was surprised, and then he saw Anton leaving and smiled heartily. What a lucky star. At night, Anton transformed into Batman and came to Osborn Manor on the outskirts of New York. This was originally a barren mountain that was not too steep. 20 years ago, Norman Osborn spent a lot of money to transform it into his own manor. Although it is in the suburbs, it only takes an hour to drive into the city, which is not far. After arriving at the manor, Anton hid in the grove and looked at the strict security measures of Osborn Manor. He thought that something was wrong. The weapons on these people have exceeded the normal security. Norman Osborn's secret laboratory is probably set up in this manor. Whoosh. He found a blind spot in the surveillance and sneaked into it. Under the manor. Few people know that there is a huge laboratory hidden here. At this time, a tall green-skinned lizard man was sitting on a chair that was several sizes larger than a normal seat, operating the high-end experimental equipment in front of him. Not enough, not enough. The lizard man murmured to himself. At present, although the human enhancement potion can delay the deterioration of genes, it does not play a decisive role. There is no way to fundamentally make up for the genetic defects, and he paused. The human enhancement potion actually has the side effect of schizophrenia. This thing is terrible. As if thinking of something, a trace of fear appeared in the eyes full of animality. Obviously, the lizard man thought of Norman Osborn, whose negative emotions were infinitely magnified by the side effects, and turned into the Green Goblin. A green devil with a brutal personality, moody, and a hobby of dressing up as a goblin, and riding a flying skateboard to destroy everywhere. It's only been a few days, and the experimental base is almost overturned by that guy. Now, that guy has begun to regard himself as the Green Goblin, full of desire for destruction. If he hadn't been targeting Oscorp for his own experiments, the lizard man would have wanted to slap the Green Goblin with his tail. He had never thought that he was the same in the eyes of the Green Goblin. A rubbish that had recovered his limbs after taking the limb regeneration potion, but was mentally disturbed and began to worship lizards. Although the Green Goblin was crazy, he at least still considered himself a human being. Moreover, the Green Goblin firmly believed that human body strengthening potions were the true evolutionary path that humans had to face. It was definitely not the lizard empire that the lizards talked about. The two people had ulterior motives and were not good people. One hoped that Oscorp would support his research. The other hoped that the lizard man could use his intelligence and wisdom to develop a product without side effects as soon as possible, which could solve genetic diseases and genetic defects once and for all. Beep, beep. Suddenly, a sharp alarm sounded in the spacious underground laboratory. Someone broke in. The lizard man was shocked that someone could break into this place. He thought of last night, when the Green Goblin took out the weapon he had prepared for a long time, rushed out of the manor with a distorted face, and then rushed back with murderous intent and a little embarrassed. Needless to say, this guy must have done something bad outside and was picked on. At this time, the lizard man didn't know that the man that the Green Goblin had offended was the man who had torn off his hands and feet. But the next second, he knew it. A familiar voice echoed in his ears, and the lizard man's face twisted instantly. Connors, you are here. Thanks to low blue sky, eternal little monster, you and Shuari, rugged and downtrodden, young and ignorant silence, sorry for the roar of the quiet man, Santa Fe Lion Hall light, the road of the insect, for the rewards, and questions Redding, Yehua, Self-Shura, SUIs Indeo Ren, for the rewards. Thank you very much. Chapter 78, Strategic Contempt, Tactical Attention. A familiar voice, accompanied by a piercing alarm, echoed in his ears. The owner of this voice, the lizard man will never forget. Batman. Turning his head suddenly, the lizard man saw the man who he recognized, even if he turned into ash, wearing a black armor, with a flying cape and a chin. Although the battle suit on his body has changed, the basic characteristics have not changed at all, and the voice has not changed. It's you. The lizard man smiled grimly. Great, I've been looking for you for a long time. I didn't expect that you would take the initiative to appear in front of me. You seem to be too confident in yourself, Connors. Anton looked at the lizard man in front of him with a contemptuous tone, and was very calm. He didn't need to be afraid of his former defeated opponent. Of course, strategically despise the enemy and tactically pay attention to the enemy. Anton didn't underestimate the lizard man. After all, if he wanted to take down the lizard man without killing him, it seemed that he would have to tear off all his limbs this time. Maybe the next time they meet, the lizard man will be a super disabled person who can only type with chopsticks in his mouth, or control experimental equipment with voice. Batman, I'm no longer the person I used to be. The lizard man was full of confidence, and he shouted angrily, flying towards Anton. Anton had a blank expression on his face, and after feeling the power of the Arkham Knight armor, he raised the corner of his lip, grabbed the lizard man's joints, and pulled them violently. The lizard man opened his eyes wide, as if thinking of the scene when Anton tore his hands and feet apart that night. Crack. The crisp sound of bone dislocation rang out. His body was stiff, and the arm that was swinging the fist seemed to have been separated from his body, no longer his own. Although Connors turned into a lizard man, he did not really turn into a lizard. The main structure of his body was still in human form, and it was still suitable for joint techniques. Bang. Then, Anton did not give him time to breathe. With a smooth shoulder throw, the lizard man was smashed heavily to the ground. The floor of the laboratory was sunken and cracked like a spider web. Batman. The lizard man howled in pain, his eyes bloodshot, full of resentment, wishing he could bite off the man's head in front of him. I actually gave you a chance to speak. It seems I didn't serve you well enough. Anton responded with a sneer. A sharp claw gun popped out from the armor on his right forearm. The claw gun pierced the lizard man's left arm fiercely, piercing his humerus, and then followed up with a punch, completely crushing the lizard man's entire shoulder joint. Kai. Blood spurted out, and the lizard man's face was extremely distorted. This level of severe pain was the second time he had experienced it. The sharp tip of the claw gun pierced in, like a slow slicing. The lizard man turned around and swung his tail, drooping his left arm, struggling hard. Anton grabbed his left arm tightly, stood up to avoid his long tail, and once again tore off the lizard man's arm, then swung the huge chair next to him, and smashed the lizard man away, threw a bad grenade, and then stepped back to avoid the explosion. Boom. The grenade washed his face. A huge roar like a meteor falling to the ground sounded. At the same time, terrifying flames and shockwaves raged on the lizard man's face. The airwave swept wildly. The bat cloak fluttered and was blown to a rustling sound. When everything calmed down, the lizard man collapsed on the ground, completely disfigured. One hand was empty, his body was charred, and there were traces of burns everywhere. The white coat used by researchers was burned into rags. After being severely ravaged by Anton, this guy has lost most of his combat effectiveness. However, with the lizard man's self-healing ability to grow back broken hands and feet, he can recover to his peak level in half an hour at most. Of course, Anton would not give him a chance. In the painful and terrified eyes of the lizard man, he used the dagger on the wrist of the armor to cut off the lizard man's other hand, and also cut off his legs and lizard tail. The lizard man completely became a lizard stick. Blood was spilled all over the laboratory. At this time, the security team of Osborn Manor finally arrived late. They were holding advanced energy weapons, and were stunned for a moment when they saw the mess in the underground laboratory and the miserable state of the lizard man. "Batman!" someone exclaimed. The next moment, boom. A flash bomb forced everyone to close their eyes tightly. After a while, they opened their eyes, and their eyes were red, with an unprecedented sourness. But Batman had disappeared. At the same time, the lizard man who was cut into a stick also disappeared. The security team looked at each other and swallowed their saliva. They thought of their boss, Norman Osborn, who had become moody recently, and they didn't know what to do for a while. Osborn Manor, the outer woods. The lush leaves blocked the pale moonlight. In the shadows, Anton came here with the disabled lizard man. He threw the lizard man on the ground and asked, "Where is the Green Goblin?" What did he do? The battle with the lizard man only attracted the security team, not the Green Goblin. This is wrong. The Green Goblin couldn't miss such a movement. The lizard man looked weak and didn't give Anton a good look. He sneered, "I won't say anything." Kai Kai. Anton was merciless. A short sword popped out of his wrist and cut off the broken limbs of the lizard man. The granulation lad grew again in a short time. The lizard man was in pain and sweated coldly. The anger in his eyes seemed to heat up the air. "Batman, we are not done yet." He spoke word by word, but was ignored by Anton. "When I recover you, I will send you to Purgatory to accompany Kingpin. At that time, with your image as a human stick, I hope Kingpin will take good care of you." Anton glanced at him indifferently and summoned the Batmobile. He tied the lizard man to the back of the Batmobile, sat in the cockpit, issued the order to take off, stepped on the accelerator, and the Batmobile sped away. The security team of Osborn Manor finally found the shadow of the car in the sky, which turned into a meteor and rushed towards the sky. They were getting more and more headaches. It's over. The lizard man was taken away by Batman. On the other side, Eddie and April searched all over the sewers of New York, and with some unusual stories from their explorations, they finally found the traces of the 4 Ninja Turtles that Anton had mentioned. "It's in there." Venom's voice rang in Eddie's mind. Although they had locked the main activity area of the 4 turtles through some stories, they still relied mainly on Venom's perception to find the sewer with the abnormality. "Is your information reliable? Are they really down there?" April was a little skeptical. She didn't know about Venom's existence, so she couldn't believe that Eddie had found the 4 talking turtles just like that. "Trust my professional ability." Eddie didn't blush, pulled open the manhole cover, and entered the sewer first. "Okay." April spread her hands helplessly, unable to do anything with Eddie, and followed him down. Chapter 79 Little Spider, getting beaten every time. The Batmobile was speeding across the sea and landed on a rooftop on the edge of Manhattan where no one cared. He took out his cell phone and sent a message to Peter Parker. After all, if he wanted to restore the lizard man to Kurt Connors, he needed Spider-Man's help. After Peter received the message, he immediately turned into Spider-Man and rushed to the rooftop. "Drive, Connors." 10 minutes later, Spider-Man arrived quickly and saw the lizard man cut into a stick. His eyes were full of heartache and reluctance. He knew why Batman did this. The lizard man has a strong recovery ability, and his physique is different from that of ordinary people. He has an extraordinary drug resistance and a very fast metabolism in his body. Anesthetics are basically ineffective against him. If you don't do this, it will be difficult to subdue the lizard man. "Batman." Spider-Man had a complicated expression on his face and whispered, "I don't have a backup of the antidote, so I need to go to Oscorp to remake it, which will take about half an hour. I'll stay here to watch over him and contact someone to take away the recovered Connors. I've already arranged a place for him that is absolutely suitable, so there's no need to worry about him causing trouble in the future." Anton nodded to Spider-Man. "The sooner you go, the sooner you'll be back. SHIELD. Spider-Man asked before leaving, which made Anton look surprised. "Yes." Anton said meaningfully, "It seems that they have also come to you. Well, I left their contact information, but I didn't agree to join." Spider-Man thought that his idol was unhappy and was a little flustered. He quickly explained, "I'm just a high school student, and I'm not interested in the work of an agent." "You're right. There are a lot of troubles in S.H.I.E.L.D. Now is not the best time for you to contact them." Anton nodded. "If there is a need in the future, I will talk to them. You'd better not be fooled by that Black Cyclops." "Black Cyclops?" Spider-Man was puzzled, but the one who came to me was a bald man. "The Black Cyclops is their director," Anton answered casually and waved his hand. "You should go to Osborn quickly. The lizard man urgently needs your antidote, otherwise, he may have to endure the pain of losing his limbs again." "Understood," Peter said, and immediately wandered around the city. After watching Spider-Man leave, Anton stood there, waiting for Coulson to send someone to come. When I contacted Coulson just now, he said that he was not in New York, but he had to take care of this matter, so I immediately sent a colleague near New York to Anton's location as quickly as possible to escort the Lizard Man. Lizard Man, Connors, was tied to the Batmobile with a special rope, staring at Batman with a pair of hateful eyes. Hearing his communication with Spider-Man in the other end of the phone, he suddenly sneered. "Osborn Building." Spider-Man used his intern ID card to enter the building and took the elevator to the limb regeneration department of post-disaster reconstruction. Although the Lizard Man incident caused fluctuations in the stock market of Osborn, there is no doubt that according to the real situation disclosed by Osborn and the New York Police Department afterwards, it is definitely a blessing for the disabled. That is, limb disability can really be cured. Lizard gene drugs have the ability to repair limbs, and disabled people have the possibility of turning back to normal people. The premise is to crack the side effects of the lizard gene drug and not turn them into lizard men. Under the call of countless disabled people and netizens, and considering the interests, Osborn has not stopped its research on limb regeneration. At the board meeting, all shareholders of Osborn even unanimously agreed to continue the limb regeneration experiment and added research funds, trying to completely get rid of or reduce the side effects as much as possible in the next few years so that it can be put on the market. It can be imagined that once the lizard gene drug is successfully developed, Osborn will become the only one in the world. With this technology alone, Osborn can make a lot of money. As the assistant of the Lizard Man Connors, Peter cannot be ignored and naturally becomes a key member of the limb regeneration department. Although he is still a high school student, he has the capital to officially join Osborn. Coming to the newly built limb regeneration department, Peter found the synthesis machine and made the antidote in an orderly manner. At this time, there was a strange sound from upstairs in Osborn. The sound was very slight and did not attract attention. Unfortunately, Peter has spider sense. In other words, he has the ability to predict danger. His temples kept beating. The illusory spider silk in his brain that belonged to the spider sense was like a string being played, shaking to the point of not stopping. "What's going on?" Spider hesitated for a moment, looking at the antidote that would take more than 10 minutes to make, and planned to go upstairs to check the situation. The interior of the Osborn building is clearly divided into 3 areas: low, middle, and high, corresponding to different departments. For example, the lower floors are the real estate department, investment department, etc. are under Osborn. In the middle and above, most of them are research institutes. For example, the 30-odd floors, where Peter was just now, are the biological gene experiment area, which has a total of 3 floors, and belongs to this department. The highest floors are the weapons research department. Many new weapons designed by Osborn were born in these places. Of course, weapons manufacturing is handled by another place. This place is only responsible for design and displaying some previous finished weapon models and a few genuine ones. The weapons research department is not open to the public and is very mysterious. Only the senior executives of Osborn can enter these floors and see the finished models and a few truly new weapons. Even Peter only visited once, when he first came to Osborn, with Harry Osborn, and never saw it again. However, not long ago, a military leader came to visit Osborn. It is said that the military had a very unpleasant conversation with Oscorp that time. Norman Osborn was furious after the military personnel left. With this information flashing through his mind, Peter took the elevator all the way up, and the sensation in his mind became stronger and stronger. Danger. Danger. What on earth is here? Peter was very confused and very nervous at the same time. It was already time to get off work. He didn't think anyone would make him feel dangerous, but just thought that some terrible weapon might get out of control. Ding dong. The elevator arrived at the top floor. This is the weapons display room of Oscorp. The elevator door opened. A figure wearing green armor and with cruel eyes heard the movement from the elevator, turned his head suddenly and looked at Peter, who was still in the elevator. Half an hour later, Anton was waiting on the rooftop board, looking at the lizard man tied to the Batmobile, whose limbs had grown about 10 centimeters, wondering whether to chop him off again. The lizard man was stared at with a chill all over his body and felt that his limbs would be gone in the next second. To be honest, he was almost resigned to it. At this moment, on the huge electronic screen opposite the rooftop, an urgent news broadcast by the 6th News Channel of New York TV station flashed. Osborn Building has another terrorist attack. Spider-Man is fighting with the terrorists. It is reported that the terrorist who attacked the Osborn Building was dressed like a goblin in a green suit and a flying skateboard. In the conversation with Spider-Man, he called himself the Green Goblin. Spider-Man is in a bad situation. The New York Police Department has arrived at the scene and is evacuating the crowd. If the general public sees this news, please stay away from the Osborn Building immediately to avoid being affected by the fight between the Green Goblin and Spider-Man. The reporter risked his life to report from the bottom of the Osborn Building. At the same time, the Green Goblin and Spider-Man behind the reporter were fighting back and forth, and the fight was very colorful. Although it was very colorful, Spider-Man was in a bad situation. The flying skateboard under the Green Goblin's feet made his aerial combat ability higher than that of the little spider, and his mobility was extremely strong. The little spider was retreating step by step, and it was difficult to control the situation. On the rooftop, Anton watched the news, frowning, staring at the little spider in the picture, guessing that the little spider was in Oscorp and accidentally ran into the Green Goblin. Tonight, the Green Goblin was not in his own manner, but ran to Oscorp. But then again, why was the little spider beaten again? It seems that after this time, I have to give the little spider some special martial arts training to make him grow up quickly, so that he won't explode every time after being beaten. Chapter 80, Bad Lights Illuminate Manhattan. Osborn Building. The New York Police Department Task Force, led by George Stacy, quickly attacked and prepared to give Spider-Man some help. Other police officers were responsible for evacuating New York citizens in the Manhattan area. We have to find a way to help Spider-Man, George said to the task force members around him. Are the snipers in place? In place. The task force members said solemnly. You can shoot at any time. Okay, let him seize the opportunity. After George said this, he was busy asking the citizens about the evacuation situation. Fortunately, since the Green Goblin and Spider-Man appeared together, there were very few casualties under the containment of Spider-Man. The main losses were still the buildings and municipal facilities affected by the battle between the Green Goblin and Spider-Man, especially the Osborn Building, which had just been repaired and was extremely unlucky. However, property losses can be compensated, and the most important thing is the safety of citizens' lives. George looked up at the two fighting figures in the air with a serious look. Counting losses and casualties is a post-event task. The problem now is to quickly deal with the Green Goblin, who is running around and taking pleasure in destruction. In midair, the Green Goblin was riding a flying skateboard like a slippery loach. Spider-Man swung back and forth on the spider silk, unable to locate the specific position of the Green Goblin in action, but with his spider sense, he could always successfully dodge the Green Goblin's fatal blows and then fight back with difficulty. But if the fight continued like this, the superhero would often suffer. Spider-Man was a little anxious. The Green Goblin seized the opportunity and suddenly rushed towards Spider-Man on the flying skateboard, and the two collided head-on. Spider-Man had no time to dodge and fell from midair to the roof of the car. Beep, beep. The roof of the car collapsed with a loud bang, sounding a shrill alarm. There was no time to feel the pain at all. Seeing the Green Goblin throwing another pumpkin bomb, Spider-Man opened his eyes wide and quickly turned over to dodge. Boom! Exclamation mark. The collapsed car exploded with a loud bang. Flames shot up into the sky, and the smell of gasoline filled the entire street. Seeing that the battle between the two had finally reached the ground, the task force quickly gathered with guns in hand, aimed at the Green Goblin, and pulled the trigger. Bang, bang, bang. Flames erupted, and bullets had no effect on the Green Goblin, being bounced off his armor. Task force, you are too naive. The Green Goblin sneered, and threw the pumpkin bomb next to the members of the task force, which exploded. The members of the task force who gathered around him all fell to the ground. George Stus's face was ugly, heartbroken and sad, and more anxious. Facing these supervillains who mastered advanced technology, it was really difficult for his New York Police Department to subdue the enemy through combat. Especially these enemies were often extremely cruel, killing people without hesitation, and did not care about the safety of ordinary citizens at all. Fortunately, Spider-Man helped them to contain the Green Goblin for a while, giving them time to evacuate more citizens. Whoosh! The Green Goblin saw George at a glance. Commissioner of the New York Police Department, killing you should make my name more famous in New York. As Norman Osborn, he was certainly no stranger to the Commissioner of the New York Police Department. The little friendship they had in the past was ruthlessly thrown out of his mind. The Green Goblin's eyes showed murderous intent. He laughed strangely and rushed towards George quickly. George opened his eyes wide, feeling the danger coming, as if he was falling into the abyss. Time seemed to slow down. His reaction speed could not keep up with the speed of the Green Goblin's killing. He could only watch the enemy turn into the god of death and come to reap his life. Green Goblin, stop. Spider-Man was anxious. He shouted angrily and rushed over from a distance to stop the Green Goblin. This is his father-in-law. If George died, not only would Gwen be sad, but he would also be ashamed to face Gwen. Besides, if Gwen knew that he was Spider-Man and had not saved George at the critical moment, she might not be able to talk about love. At the critical moment, the Batmobile drove over from the horizon. It's Batman. On the edge of Manhattan, those citizens standing on the street, watching the news about the Osborn building losing control and the Green Goblin attacking New York on the huge screen, looked up and saw a familiar shadow. Batmobile. Let's go back a few minutes. The Batlight on the rooftop of the Daily Bugle building was turned on at Anton's command. A huge beam of light was cast into the night clouds. The Bat Pattern appeared. At least half of the people in the city saw the Bat Pattern. This pattern is familiar to everyone. As a popular online attraction, not only New York, but also the whole United States knows that there is a Batlight on the rooftop of the Daily Bugle building that is no longer easily lit. Tonight, the Batlight once again casts a rare light. The Bat Pattern fluctuates with the clouds, which is breathtaking. People are moved and look up. Even if they are not residents of the Manhattan area, they open the windows at this time, stand by the window, and look at the Bat Pattern on the clouds. Some people even quickly come to the rooftop to explore the figure of Batman in the sky. Whoosh! Many people saw a black shadow passing by like lightning. Batmobile. It's Batman. Batman appears. He's here. People cheered. After experiencing several crises, and after the Kingpin incident, people's trust in Batman has reached an unimaginable height. No matter what happens, as long as Batman appears, they firmly believe that Batman will be able to solve it smoothly. At the same time, in Osborn building, among the police officers who rushed here, those who were in the outer area of Osborn building and were in a hurry to evacuate the citizens, saw the pattern in the sky and all breathed a sigh of relief. I don't know since when, even these policemen began to have absolute trust in Batman. But their colleagues, the members of the New York Police Department task force, didn't pay attention to their heads, including the snipers who were always on high alert and looking for opportunities to attack the Green Goblin. These people all focused on the Green Goblin. Seeing the Green Goblin killing their own director, these people were more nervous than ever. Cold sweat quickly broke out on their foreheads and backs, and a group of people roared wildly. The sniper gritted his teeth and pulled the trigger. Whoosh! The armor-piercing bullet was fired and hit the Green Goblin's flying skateboard. The tip of the skateboard was notched. The Green Goblin turned his body for a moment, but still resolutely killed in the direction of George Stussi. It didn't seem to affect George Stussi's ending. Spider-Man's eyes were about to burst. It was too late. At this time, the Batmobile arrived in the sky not far away. Spider-Man looked up and saw that the Batmobile had changed shape. A figure was ejected from the cockpit, like a cannonball, breaking through the air, as if generating a shockwave, raising a rolling airwave, and rushing towards George Stacy, who was in danger at an incredible speed. Spider-Man was still desperate. He calculated the distance in his heart, and found that even with Batman's current speed, it was impossible to save his father-in-law. He was dead. He was extremely anxious. In midair, Batman, who was ejected, raised his hand and shot the sharp claw gun on his forearm. Whoosh! Not far away, on the wide street, George was watching the Green Goblin rushing towards him. The green evil figure kept enlarging in his pupils, and he was like a fool, motionless. The airwave raised by the Green Goblin's flying skateboard and the huge impact force it brought had already landed on him first. George was not afraid, and his eyes were still full of determination. Even if he died, he insisted that evil would not triumph over justice. Hehe. The Green Goblin came in front of George, ready to pierce George's chest with the sharp end of the flying skateboard. At this moment, the grappling gun attacked. Boom. The grappling gun hit the flying skateboard. The latter could not stay in the air, and suddenly tilted, slid to the side, and kept spinning. The power system under the skateboard was destroyed by the grappling gun, and thick black smoke came out. The Green Goblin was shocked, and fell down in an instant. He was thrown far away by the huge force of inertia, and crashed into the wall of the building next to him. The next moment, Batman arrived at the scene, and landed on the ground in front of George. Boom. The sound like a meteor falling to the ground shook everyone's ears. The ground shattered, and a deep pit appeared. Batman stood in the pit, looking at the Green Goblin with a cold expression, without turning his head, and waved to George behind him. George, all of you go evacuate the citizens. The task force is no longer needed here. Anton said calmly, leave the Green Goblin to me. Thanks to Infinite Flow Magnetic Field Marshal God, KLKGB, Drunken Dreams in the Red Dust, Go with the Wind, Book Friend 20180603080326932 right square bracket. And Reincarnation Body, for their awards. Another thing, I changed the first chapter. The protagonist chooses Batman as the main template to the system randomly selects Batman as the main template, because there are really many friends who emphasize, who should I choose between Batman and Superman? I looked back, and found that I didn't think so much when I started the book. After writing it, it seems that I'm a little subjective, so I simply changed it. This will be more reasonable. It does not affect the reading, but I just think I should inform everyone. Please forgive me. Finally, the reading has fallen below the red line. Please click in every day to have a look. Please collect. Please vote for the monthly ticket. Please recommend. Chapter 81 Collision. The Turtle Group officially debuts. Batman, I leave this to you. George Stacy did not hesitate. He trusted Batman very much. Although Batman's repeated appearances in the past few months have caused big news and overshadowed the New York Police Department, it must be admitted that it is precisely because of Batman's deterrent power that the crime rate in New York has been declining. The most important thing is that Batman always leaves the aftermath to the police department. Rounding it off, the New York Police Department can be considered to have an amazing performance. Especially after the Lizard Man incident. Thanks to Batman's influence and friendly cooperation with Batman, the police department has embarked on a virtuous cycle and has been commended by the city hall many times. Even the citizens of New York have become more pleasing to the New York Police Department. Of course, the citizens did not know that the Lizard Man was kidnapped by unidentified gangsters the next night. After George finished speaking, he left the scene to Batman, then pressed the communicator and ordered the sniper to retreat. At the same time, he hurriedly commanded the task force to retreat, leaving enough space for Batman and the Green Goblin to fight. Soon, Spider-Man arrived late. When he saw George Stacy's command and thought about the New York Police Department's support when he was fighting the Green Goblin, he didn't feel that he was taken care of at all. Instead, he felt that it was a humiliation and obvious distrust. But, after all, an idol is really an idol. Even the police trust him so much. Spider-Man thought about it and felt that he had witnessed how much influence the name Batman has now. This is his future goal. Whoosh. While thinking, a flying knife cut through the air, and the airflow vibrated. killing Batman next to Spider-Man. Anton tilted his head slightly, letting the flying knife pass by his ear and explode behind him. Boom. Airflow and dust were stirred up. In front of Anton and Spider-Man, a green figure slowly walked towards them. Batman. Spider-Man. The Green Goblin's tone was low and seemed a little complicated, but more of it was hatred and uncontrollable irritability. Why stop me? He suddenly opened his arms, full of madness. Why don't you join me and conquer New York together? We are all extraordinary people with extraordinary abilities. Let's build a New York that is more suitable for us. Isn't it what you and I want? You are really crazy, Norman. Anton sighed, looking at the Green Goblin with regret in his eyes. Now there is no one around. Anton knows the other party's identity, and the other party probably has some understanding of his identity. When Spider-Man heard this, his eyes under the mask were as big as Tangling. Norman! Exclamation mark. Norman Osborn. Is this the friendly Uncle Norman he has known since he was a child? Spider-Man did not doubt the truth of this sentence, because this sentence came from Batman's mouth. Batman will not slander others. Thinking of just now in the weapons display room of the Osborn building, he stood in front of the Green Goblin without any defense and without any identity cover, but the Green Goblin attacked him without hesitation. Spider-Man suddenly felt hurt. Sewer, Ninja Dojo. Eddie was talking to Splinter, a mouse about 1.5 meters tall, who could speak human language, had great posture, and martial arts skills, about Shredder and Sykes. He was very surprised when he first saw the mouse and turtle, but as they talked, he already regarded them as human beings. Eddie got answers to many questions from Splinter. Basically, he got to know the Bigfoot gang thoroughly. On the side, April was talking to 4 turtles with lively personalities. They were all very excited about each other. Are you the little girl who saved us? Michelangelo, the most eccentric of the 4 turtles, nicknamed Mickey, the yellow eye masked turtle, looked April up and down and said with a grin, "You are so beautiful now. Do you plan to find a boyfriend as strong as me? I really can't believe that after more than 10 years, you are all grown up." April turned a deaf ear to him and answered irrelevantly, not caring about what Mickey said at all. She opened her eyes wide, looking at the 4 strong muscular turtles in front of her, and fell into extreme excitement. This is the result of her father's research, and it was also her childhood pet. Suddenly, the voice of a news reporter rang in the ears of several people. Osborn building has another terrorist attack. Spider-Man is fighting with terrorists. It is reported that the terrorist who attacked Osborn building, he calls himself the Green Goblin. Spider-Man is in a bad situation. The New York Police Department has rushed to evacuate the people. If the general public sees this news, please stay away from Osborn building immediately to avoid being affected by the battle between the Green Goblin and Batman. The rapid and tense news broadcast made several people come back to their senses in an instant and cast their eyes on the second-hand TV next to the dojo. News. Eddie and April responded immediately, especially Eddie. How could such a big news be missing him, the editor-in-chief of the Daily Bugle and the #1 star reporter in New York? Of course, the most important thing is that he realized that Anton had taken action tonight. There would be no such coincidence. The purpose of Anton's action is most likely this terrorist who suddenly attacked New York and called himself Green Goblin. I have to go check out the situation. Eddie stood up quickly and said goodbye to the big rat Splinter. Master Splinter, I have to go to the Osborn building now. I will discuss the Bigfoot gang's problem with you when I come back. But you can rest assured, I promise on behalf of the Daily Bugle, that I will track down the Bigfoot gang and Sykes Corporation to the end. The Daily Bugle is almost tied to Batman. It is impossible for Splinter not to have heard of the popular Batman. Eddie believes that this big rat who is like a human wise man can understand the hidden meaning of his words. Eddie. Seeing this, April was a little worried. The next second, she gritted her teeth and said, "I'll go with you." Eddie glanced at April. Although they had only known each other for a short time, April was just like her old self. He knew that he could not convince the latter, so he nodded. "You can go with me, but you must do what I say." As they spoke, the two walked towards the exit of the Sewer Ninja Dojo. "Wait." Splinter hesitated for a moment and said, "I'll let the children help you, teacher." The 4 turtles immediately gathered around. They looked excited. "Really? Can we finally go out and take action? The 4 turtles were so excited that they almost jumped up, feeling that they were finally recognized by Splinter. Do you think I don't know that you have already been out? Splinter sneered, looking at the 4 little turtles, feeling helpless and relieved. To be honest, if Eddie hadn't come to him, he really didn't know that the 4 little turtles had already had contact with the Bigfoot gang and had caused the Bigfoot gang to suffer a series of setbacks. It seems it's time. Splinter was nervous and excited. On the one hand, he hoped that his efforts over more than 10 years would allow him to see the turtle group he imagined, and on the other hand, he hoped that the 4 little turtles would be safe and sound and return triumphantly. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82, Green Goblin is shocked. Batman's evil taste. Near the Osborn building, the Green Goblin invited Batman and Spider-Man to join his camp, but they rejected him flatly, and he immediately became murderous. However, this was also expected by the Green Goblin. What a pity. The Green Goblin laughed strangely, and the flying knife that he had prepared for a long time was suddenly thrown out by him in a sneak attack. The demon flying knife was extremely fast, spinning and killing Anton and Spider-Man. Ding. The demon flying knife was caught by Anton, who was well prepared, with a bat dart. The demon flying knife and the bat dart collided in the air and exploded in the air. The terrifying flames swept through, and the airwaves rolled in, blowing away the smoke from the burned car not far away. Spider-Man seized the opportunity and ejected the spider silk to bind the Green Goblin. But the Green Goblin dodged first and came to the side of the flying skateboard whose flight system was damaged by the grappling gun. He stepped hard, and it seemed to trigger some preset program, and the flying skateboard resumed operation. This was actually an emergency measure designed by the Green Goblin before. As long as the main structure and the main facilities inside are not damaged, the flying board can still start the backup power system and retain a lot of original functions. The Green Goblin stepped on the flying board and prepared to pull the battlefield to a high altitude. He didn't expect that Anton saw his first step and guessed his purpose. The grappling gun fired again, forcing the Green Goblin to dodge. Then, with the help of the contraction of the grappling gun rope, Anton quickly approached the Green Goblin. A flying kick. Bang. The armor on the Green Goblin's chest was slightly dented, and he flew off the skateboard. Anton held the skateboard with both hands, not giving the Green Goblin any chance to operate. The power system inside the Arkham Knight armor was fully operational, erupting with huge power, forcibly pulling off the energy shield under the flying board, and then punching the inside of the flying board to pieces. The flying board was completely damaged, and the Green Goblin's idea of relying on air combat to establish an advantage was instantly shattered. Batman, I will miss you. However, the Green Goblin, whose important equipment was destroyed, did not show any sign of dejection. Instead, he sneered, raised his hand slightly, and his eyes were full of coldness and ruthlessness. Anton seemed to have sensed something and quickly retreated. Boom. The flying skateboard was detonated by the Green Goblin and turned into a ball of fire, triggering the weapon devices on the skateboard itself, all of which exploded. Iron and steel fragments flew everywhere, and the shockwave instantly engulfed Anton, who had just evacuated not far away. Crack, crack, crack. The ground was directly dented by half an inch under the huge impact force. The few vehicles on both sides of the street were all damaged in the explosion, and the glass was shattered and burned continuously. The smell of gasoline filled the entire street. The street opposite the Osborn building has become a real battlefield. Batman. Seeing this, Spider-Man's eyes were about to burst, and he exclaimed in shock. He didn't care about the danger, let alone the possible secondary explosion, and rushed into the fire to save Batman. This is the price, Batman. The Green Goblin stood on the side of the street, and the huge shadow cast by the Osborn building in the pale moonlight completely covered him. Under the blazing fire, caused by the explosion of the flying skateboard, one side of his body was set off by red flames, and he had a strong villain aura. He let Spider-Man rush into the fire, and he did not stop him. because the Green Goblin firmly believed that Batman could not be intact in this explosion. He stared at the blazing fire gradually covered by thick smoke with a cold look in his eyes. His face under the helmet was crazy, and his heart was full of pride and excitement. The superhero who resounded throughout the United States was defeated by him. He firmly believed that, even if Batman did not die, he must have lost most of his fighting power. In any case, in the eyes of the Green Goblin, what Batman faced next would be a torture directed by him personally. However, two figures walked out of the fire and smoke. One tall and one short. The tall one was naturally Batman, and the short one was Spider-Man. At this time, Anton's armor had been damaged. Due to the close distance, the steel fragments from the flying skateboard explosion were directly ejected and embedded in his armor. Coupled with the flames and the huge shockwave, his current condition was not good, and was even worse than his peak. If it weren't for the fact that the Arkham Knight's armor was much stronger than the simple iron structure of the Rabbit armor, Anton would have been killed on the spot. Even so, he was also injured to a certain extent in this impact. Of course, it was definitely not as serious as the Green Goblin imagined. But the Green Goblin was right. The armor damage rate was as high as 67%, and Anton had lost most of his combat effectiveness. The Green Goblin laughed. Although he was the boss of Oscorp, he was also a highly educated scientist with sufficient professional knowledge. Batman, even if you are fine now, what else can you use to fight me? The Green Goblin saw Batman's dilemma at a glance. The armor on his body was damaged on a large scale, and his combat effectiveness was lost by more than half, which was incomparable to his peak state. Even with the help of Spider-Man, it would be hard for the two of them to subdue him. Moreover, the battle had increased the Green Goblin's arrogance. His confidence had soared. Even if he lost his highly maneuverable flying skateboard, he still had enough equipment and ability to support himself in killing Batman and Spider-Man. Green Goblin, you. Spider-Man was about to speak when Anton raised his hand slightly. Anton's exposed chin showed a mysterious smile. He didn't look panicked at all, but seemed to have a sure win. He said, Green Goblin, do you really think I'll let you control me now? Let me see how you can still resist me. The Green Goblin put himself in Batman's position. He thought hard and didn't think Batman had any way to break the situation. But the next second, he opened his eyes wide, dumbfounded, with an incredible look on his face. Batman smiled slightly and rubbed Spider-Man's head. Kid, I'll teach you a trick. What? Whenever you encounter difficulties that you can't solve, just stretch out your right hand and snap your fingers. Maybe any wish will come true. Spider-Man was confused. He was originally downcast and thought that what the Green Goblin said was true. He never thought that he would hear Batman say such a thing. Then, under the gazes of Spider-Man and the Green Goblin, Anton snapped his fingers. Bang! There seemed to be a vague sound of snapping fingers in the air. Repairing the Arkham Knight armor will deduct 4 million fan points, 40% of the original value of the armor, and the Arkham Knight armor is worth 10 million. Are you sure? Yes. After the snap, under the extremely shocked gazes of Spider-Man and the Green Goblin, the armor on Anton's body seemed to have gone back in time. The damaged parts were quickly repaired until it was as good as new. This change took only a few seconds. This is impossible. The Green Goblin screamed. He couldn't think of such a bizarre scene happening to Batman. The look under Spider-Man's mask was all weird. He thought of the same trick Batman showed when he was fighting Kingpin. To be honest, if this scene was real, it couldn't be explained by magic. It could be described as magic. Deliberately pretending to be damaged in battle, and then when the enemy is sure of victory, change back to the original form, and end up with no damage. Is this Batman's bad taste? Spider-Man looked at Batman, then at the Green Goblin, who was almost collapsing. He wanted to laugh like the Green Goblin did a minute ago. Beside him, Anton looked at the Green Goblin with a provocative smile. Have you figured out how you're going to get beaten? Chapter 83 George, the turtle must be an accomplice of the Lizard Man. After Anton left, the Batmobile entered the automatic driving mode and parked in an empty alley not far from the Osborn building. The Lizard Man, who had lost his arms and legs and even his tail, struggled to break free from the Batmobile. But no matter how strong his self-healing ability was, he could not grow arms and legs in such a short time and break free from Batman's special rope. Batman, The lizard man roared in a low voice, and the sound echoed in the alley, which was extremely terrifying. If the citizens near the Osborne building had not been dispersed by the police at this time, no one would be able to sleep surrounded by this sound. Staring at the sewer manhole cover only a dozen meters away from him, the lizard man was in agony. As long as he could break free from the rope, he could escape through the sewer and regain his freedom, but he couldn't do it. This is probably the farthest distance in the world. Bang! Suddenly, when the lizard man was gradually despairing, the sewer manhole cover was kicked away from the inside, suddenly rose into the air, and then fell. Bang! Exclamation mark. The manhole cover hit the ground, and the sound was loud and echoed in the dark alley. The lizard man's eyes lit up, and he felt that his chance had come. "Who?" he said hoarsely. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Several unfamiliar figures flew out of the sewer. The two sides looked at each other and were stunned. "Turtles," the lizard man murmured, and he couldn't believe that in addition to his own lizard genes, there were people who merged turtle genes. "Do you want to live a few hundred more years?" He thought about the longevity of turtles in general, and felt that this was not impossible. "Save me," the lizard man growled. "We are the same kind." "The same kind?" The turtle with the yellow eye mask was stunned, and spread his hands and said, "Brother, no matter how you look at it, we are not the same species." The turtles who came out of the sewer were naturally the turtle group that followed Eddie and April to Manhattan near the Osborne building. Michelangelo, Leonardo, Raphael, Donatello. The four turtles looked at the lizard man on the Batmobile, hesitated for a moment, and turned their attention to the Batmobile. "Wow, this car is really nice." Donatello, the purple eye mask turtle nicknamed Donnie, looked at the Batmobile in front of him with shining eyes and envy. As a technology geek, he couldn't resist the charm of the Batmobile. Don't listen to his nonsense. At this time, Eddie and April crawled out of the sewer. The former took a look at the lizard man, tied to the Batmobile, but he was not so surprised. The venom in his body had already sensed the existence of the lizard man, and reminded him in his mind, "This guy's different from you." Eddie said, "His name is Kurt Connors. He is a crazy scientist. In order to cure his disability, he injected himself with lizard gene medicine. Although his disability was cured, he also became a lizard man, a mentally ill man who intends to establish a lizard empire. I've read the news." Donnie gave Eddie a thumbs up. "Eddie, the Daily Bugle is a newspaper we must read every day. It seems that he has been caught by Batman again." Eddie passed by the lizard man. As a reporter, he took out his camera and took a photo of the lizard man who was tied up with his bloody mouth and angry. He recorded this scene and then said, "Don't pay attention to him. Let's go help Batman." "No problem. We can't wait." The turtles looked at each other, excited, and quickly rushed out of the dark alley. On the other side, after Anton recovered to his peak state, he teamed up with Spider-Man to suppress the Green Goblin. After the Green Goblin detonated the flying skateboard, he lost his biggest advantage. His mobility was greatly reduced, and even his self-confidence was rubbed to the ground by Anton's incarnation of Batman. He never thought that Anton could survive the horrific explosion without even a layer of skin on his armor being touched off. Until now, the Green Goblin couldn't figure out how Anton's armor went from being damaged to being in factory condition. Of course, if it was really as he thought, the explosion of the flying skateboard made Anton lose his combat effectiveness, the ending might really be as he expected. But the fact is there is no if. The Green Goblin was furious and mad. He didn't care about being injured. He threw a flying knife to force Spider-Man back, and came close to Anton to fight him barehanded. Bang! Anton didn't miss this opportunity. He blocked the Green Goblin's fist, locked the latter's arm, and then hit him with his knee, which made the Green Goblin's face twisted. Fortunately, he gave birth to a son early. Not far away, Spider-Man saw this scene, and felt a chill in his lower body. This was too fierce. He sincerely felt that he really lacked combat experience. Previously, the reason why he could fight with the Green Goblin for so long was purely because of his strong basic ability. If he could beat people like Batman, he should be able to play a greater role now. Spider-Man thought to himself, and rushed to help. The Green Goblin could not stop Anton's attack. With another Spider-Man, his movements were restricted everywhere. Spider-Man's ubiquitous spider silk made it difficult for him to dodge. Bang! A punch on the head. It seems that you have already thought about how to be beaten. Anton sneered and attacked, punching again and again, hitting the Green Goblin's chest, armor dented. His brain was in a trance, and his face under the hard helmet was full of wounds caused by the collision of fists, and blood gradually overflowed from the gaps. Batman. The Green Goblin collapsed to the ground. His energy was exhausted, his chest was almost motionless, and he was about to faint. He used his last bit of strength to speak slowly, word by word, with a complex tone. "Don't tell Harry." This sentence was said to Anton, and also to the little spider beside Anton. Hearing this, which sounded like an elder's admonition, the face of the little spider under the mask suddenly burst into tears. He didn't know why things turned out like this. However, this sentence completely exposed the identity of the Green Goblin. As Batman said, the Green Goblin was Norman Osborn, the Uncle Norman he had known since childhood. How could this happen? The little spider stood beside the fainted Green Goblin, in a trance, not knowing what to do next. Should he hand the Green Goblin over to the police station and stay in prison for the rest of his life? Batman. The little spider looked at his idol beside him. After solving the Green Goblin crisis, he didn't know how to deal with the Green Goblin who was knocked down. Suddenly, the spider sense in his mind jumped, and the little spider turned his head suddenly. Anton followed and looked. 4 turtles dressed as ninjas and wearing eye masks of different colors came running. Several turtles looked excited and murderous. Spider-Man's expression condensed, and he subconsciously realized that these 4 strange creatures were not easy to deal with. At the same time, George Stacy led the task force and quickly chased after them. A group of task force members blocked the turtles at one end of the street, holding their guns tightly, and pointed the muzzles at the 4 turtles. "Batman, they just broke in. They are not good people," George Stacy said with certainty. "It seems that they should be the accomplices of the Lizard Man. Maybe even the Green Goblin is their accomplice." Huh. Anton was stunned, looked at the 4 turtles, and then thought about the Lizard Man. Although the 2 sides are not of the same species, at this moment, under George's warning, their images are inexplicably overlapped. Suddenly speechless. Chapter 84, Tough Attitude. Hawkeye arrives. Wait. Before Anton could say anything, he saw Eddie leading April running towards him at the end of the street. Eddie was fine, calm and composed. But April, who was dragged by him, was panting, and her chest rose and fell rapidly. Chief Stacy, the turtles are not enemies. Eddie was not in a position to reveal Venom's identity, and he chased George for a long time. At this time, he hurriedly explained, "The turtles are here to help. They are not accomplices of the Lizard Man." What? George recognized Eddie. The latter was not a self-proclaimed first-star reporter in New York, and now he was the editor-in-chief of the well-known Daily Bugle. George was no stranger to him. George's tone was full of doubt. "You said they are Batman's helpers?" The reason for this was that in his opinion, the 4 turtles were the same as the Lizard Man. This was also the biggest reason why he suspected that the turtles were accomplices of the Lizard Man. If the nicknames of the people present were animals, why didn't he suspect Spider-Man and Batman? You know, although Batman, Spider-Man, Turtles and Lizard Man are all related to animals, in George's opinion, turtles are real turtles, just like the Lizard Man that Kurt Connors turned into, while Spider-Man and Batman are just human beings wearing a battle suit that symbolizes animals. Just ask Batman and you'll know. Eddie couldn't explain too much to George, but he knew that Batman would relieve his and the turtles' troubles. "Yes, they are the helpers I invited." Anton gave a positive answer, and then he looked at the fallen Green Goblin again and shrugged, although they came a little late. Okay. George was relieved. After this battle, his trust in Batman was raised to an unimaginable height. Because he knew that, if Batman hadn't turned the tide in the last Lizard Man incident and the Green Goblin incident this time, the whole of New York would be in crisis. Not only the citizens of New York, but also the New York Police Department should thank Batman. The Green Goblin. George chuckled and rubbed his hands. It was time for the New York Police Department to take advantage of the situation again. "Sorry, I have to take the Green Goblin away." Anton's answer was far beyond George's expectations. George suddenly felt something was wrong. This time seemed to be different from the past. Batman had different ideas. "He can be more useful in my hands." After saying this, the Batmobile flew overhead, which was automatically driven by Anton after the battle. Everyone saw that there was a lizard man who was unable to move and had been cut into a stick hanging on the back of the Batmobile. Of course, the lizard man had grown some hands and feet at this time, and his appearance was terrifying. Lizard man. George Stacy saw this guy and felt that he finally understood why Batman was unwilling to hand over the Green Goblin and the Lizard Man to the New York Police Department. Even if he gave it to him, he couldn't keep it. Damn it. George was a little frustrated for some reason, but he couldn't find a reason to convince Batman to leave the Green Goblin to the New York Police Department. In that case, I'm leaving first. Anton got into the Batmobile and flew away. Before leaving, he glanced at Spider-Man, who understood what he meant, and used a spiderweb to enter the Osborn building and take away the antidote for the Lizard Man. Seeing this, the turtles felt that they had come here for nothing. They looked at each other and then rushed into the sewers and disappeared in front of George and others. Eddie was not in a hurry to go back to the dojo in the sewers with the turtles. He stayed with April and planned to record the aftermath of the Green Goblin incident by the New York Police Department. This is hot news. At the same time, Eddie called his apprentice Phil and asked Phil to bring the professional equipment of the Daily Bugle to report on Manhattan after the Green Goblin incident. A moment later, Anton and Spider-Man met on the original rooftop. Give him an injection. Anton nodded to Spider-Man and looked at the Lizard Man, who was still tied to the Batmobile and had grown most of his hands and feet. No, Spider-Man. The Lizard Man was full of fear and resistance. He refused to let himself become that disabled poor man again. Professor, this is for your own good. Spider-Man was helpless. He looked at the Lizard Man with hatred in his eyes and injected him with an antidote. Soon, the Lizard Man turned back into Connors. This time, Connors had recovered his original state of missing his right arm and did not become a human stick as Anton imagined. It was probably because his hands and feet had almost grown when he was a lizard man. Spider-Man breathed a sigh of relief. At this time, a helicopter quickly rushed to the rooftop where Anton and others were. The two looked up. A figure carrying a bow and arrow quickly slid down to the rooftop through the rope hanging from the helicopter. Hawkeye. Because the features were too conspicuous, Anton recognized the person at a glance. At this time, there should be no one else who could carry a bow and arrow around except Hawkeye. Batman, Spider-Man. Hawkeye saw the two people on the rooftop, and there was no surprise on his face. Long before he arrived, he learned about the Green Goblin incident in Manhattan, New York through the news. He rushed to help, but now it seems that he is too late. The Green Goblin incident is over. Thinking back, he looked at the unconscious Green Goblin and Kurt Connors who had recovered. My name is Clint Barton, you can call me Hawkeye. Hawkeye quickly introduced himself and nodded to Batman. Leave them to me. Connors, take them away yourself. Anton understood Hawkeye's words and said in a unquestionable manner, the Green Goblin cannot be left to you. No. Hawkeye's tone was tough, and he had no intention of giving in the face of Batman's unquestionable attitude. Although he had not communicated with Coulson as a senior agent, he had the power to make decisions. In Hawkeye's view, both the Lizard Man Kurt Connors and the Green Goblin should be under the care of SHIELD. Hawkeye, I'm not an agent of SHIELD. Strictly speaking, we are just in a cooperative relationship, and SHIELD is begging me to cooperate. You have no right to order me. Anton frowned and looked at Hawkeye coldly. Then, the two of them said nothing. The atmosphere gradually solidified, and the air heated up. Spider-Man looked left and right, feeling that the situation was not good. The reason why Anton rejected Hawkeye was, firstly, because before contacting Coulson, the Green Goblin incident had not yet broken out, and there was no agreement between them about the Green Goblin. Connors was handed over to SHIELD before, purely because Anton was too lazy to deal with the aftermath. To some extent, isn't SHIELD an organization used for waste recycling and specializing in aftermath? The purgatory that was discussed with Coulson and established overseas as early as the Kingpin incident was a garbage recycling station managed by SHIELD. The second reason was that the Green Goblin was still emotionally unstable. In addition, Norman Osborn is a friend of his, and Harry is even an investor in his movie and a fan of Batman. Out of sympathy for the genetic disease of the Osborn family, Anton stands on the position of a friend and plans to try to cure Norman's mental illness and genetic disease. after the cure, or if it is really impossible, then think about how to deal with the mistakes made by Norman incarnated as the Green Goblin. At that time, it is not a bad idea to hand Norman over to SHIELD. As for how to cure genetic diseases, Anton already has a preliminary idea in his mind. To be honest, if the person who came was not Hawkeye, but Coulson, the two sides could have a friendly exchange and things could be discussed. However, Hawkeye's tough attitude at this time made Anton extremely unhappy. If you still want to take the Green Goblin away, then Connors, you don't have to worry about it. I will handle it myself. Anton stared at Hawkeye and sneered. You will regret it. Hawkeye took a deep look at Batman, took off the bow and arrow on his back, and planned to take coercive measures. Thanks to Sexy Little Wolf Dog and It's Your Ranking for the reward. Chapter 85 Mutation Source. Temporary prison. Regret? Anton laughed in anger. Since he became Batman, he really couldn't remember anyone daring to threaten him like this. Hawkeye had been in SHIELD for a long time. Maybe he had good fighting ability and was a top fighter, but he was far inferior to Coulson in handling related matters. He couldn't be said to have bad intentions, but he could not escape the evaluation of low emotional intelligence. Humph. Seeing him take off the bow and arrow, Anton snorted coldly, stepped on the ground, and flew forward like lightning. Hawkeye remained calm and used the bow and arrow as a machete to fight him head on. But Anton used the advantage of the armor to withstand the chop. His right fist burst out with amazing power, and when he punched, it brought a whirring sound and hit Hawkeye's left rib. Bang, bang, bang. Hawkeye's bones hurt so much that his face changed slightly, and he looked horrified. He took a few steps back involuntarily and kicked the fence at the edge of the rooftop to barely stop. Creak. The fence behind him was kicked down by his strength and fell into the empty alley below. Bang! Exclamation mark. A few seconds later, the collision sound echoed in the alley and spread to the ears of Anton and others on the rooftop. Accompanied by the whistling wind, the atmosphere was still tense. Anton and Hawkeye's eyes met, and there seemed to be crackling lightning. Hawkeye's eyes were full of solemnity. He found that he underestimated Batman. It turned out that this so-called superhero was really not in vain. Moreover, it must be admitted that for Hawkeye, who was better at long-range attacks, Anton in armor was really a bit foul. Now, do I get you out of my sight, or do you leave honestly? Anton saw Hawkeye's face changing constantly, knowing that this guy felt that the idea was difficult, and he was a little overwhelmed and hesitated for a while. And his words just happened to anger Hawkeye. You are not qualified to tell me to get out of here. Hawkeye jumped back from the rooftop to the rooftop of another building. In the process, he quickly took out an arrow from the quiver behind him and aimed it at Batman in front of him. Anton had a blank expression on his face and raised his hand to throw a bat dart. Whoosh! The dart shot out, cutting through the air as it spun, passing through the air like thunder, and rushed straight to Hawkeye, who just landed on the rooftop of another building. Boom! Exclamation mark. Hawkeye's arrow aimed at Anton was hit by the bat dart. The arrowhead broke directly. The next moment, the bat dart exploded in the air, and the fire mixed with the shockwave, engulfing Hawkeye's body and blowing it away. In Anton's nonchalant attitude, Hawkeye was defeated miserably, without any room for maneuver. Boom. The deafening sound spread across the rooftops on the edge of Manhattan, and even alarmed the police near the Osborne building, which was still quite far away. At the same time, a figure fell off the rooftop involuntarily. The floor that was more than 100 meters high was terrifying. This, Spider-Man gasped, making a contribution to global warming. He was terrified and turned to look at Batman. He is from an official agency. Won't you get into trouble if you kill him? Spider-Man was a little panicked and felt that something big had happened. Who said I killed him? Anton didn't care at all. He replied calmly, the explosive power of the bat dart can easily kill an ordinary person, but for him, it's nothing. Then again, he fell down by himself. What does it have to do with me, Batman? This. Spider-Man was speechless. Don't worry, he's very tough. He won't die so easily, Anton explained, waving his hand slightly. That's it. This lesson is enough. I don't want to tangle with him anymore. If he wants to trouble me again, there will be many opportunities in the future. After a pause, He looked at Spider-Man. "I'm leaving first. If you need me, you can always find me." As soon as he finished speaking, he knocked Connors unconscious, took the unconscious Green Goblin and Connors, jumped, opened his cape behind him, glided away, and disappeared at one end of the city. Spider-Man watched him go away, then jumped off the rooftop, swinging between buildings with the help of spider silk. Seeing a figure hanging on the wall, he breathed a sigh of relief, and then quickly disappeared at the end of the street. The figure hanging on the wall was bleeding from the explosion of the bat dart, and his eyes were full of anger. "Batman." Hawkeye gritted his teeth, hanging on the wall in the air, exuding low pressure all over his body. It was not until the surroundings were completely calm that he withdrew his gaze from watching Spider-Man leave and looked at the unknown end of the sky. He knew that Batman had left. However, this did not prevent him from being unhappy with Batman. Stopping somewhere, looking at the sewer under his feet, Anton opened the manhole cover. He called Eddie and got an address, so he turned around in the complex maze-like passages of the sewer. About 10 minutes later, he finally came to the Turtles' dojo. At this time, the Turtles had just returned home. They complained to the Big Rat Splinter that this trip was a waste of time, and the commissioner of the New York Police Department, George Stacy, still regarded them as bad guys. But when they met the long-awaited Batman, Batman also cleared their grudges for them. Mickey kept talking, and Splinter's head hurt. Swish. Suddenly, the four turtles and a rat changed their faces slightly, reacted in the same way, and looked at the entrance of the dojo together. The dark figure, with his cape flying, stood at the entrance, holding a figure in each hand. "Batman." The four turtles were startled. The Big Rat Splinter was a little surprised, but his face remained solemn. Batman came to the entrance, but they didn't notice it at all, which was beyond Splinter's expectation. If it was an enemy, they would have been ambushed by now. "I have no ill intentions." Batman spoke calmly at the door, putting down the unconscious Green Goblin and Connors in his hands. "The reason I came here is that I have something to talk to you about the Bigfoot gang, and about you." After a pause, Anton said, "And I have a little trouble to deal with now. Please sit down." Splinter nodded to Batman and left a seat for Batman. After a while, as the communication gradually deepened, the turtles and rats understood Batman's purpose. First, it was the Bigfoot gang. Second, it was the Green Goblin and Connors brought by Batman. Needless to say, the Bigfoot gang is now a thorn in the eyes of the turtles, including the target that Batman wants to remove. The relationship between Shredder and Sykes was exposed clearly during the information exchange. And looking back, consider the Green Goblin and Connors. Now, there is an urgent problem to be solved, that is, after the breakdown of the talks with SHIELD, the place where the two are imprisoned cannot be determined. However, this is not a very annoying problem, because he just met a friend who can solve the problem. The sewer of this city is an excellent temporary prison. The four turtles can just serve as prison guards, to help guard the prisoners. In addition, when the turtles are in action, the Big Rat Splinter, who has been stationed in the base camp for a long time, can also keep an eye on the Green Goblin and Connors. There is another problem, which is the mutagen in the blood of the turtles and Splinter. Mutagen is the key to the turtles and rats being called humans and becoming intelligent creatures. To some extent, this technology is similar to the limb regeneration technology studied by Connors, including the human enhancement technology that turned Norman Osborn into the Green Goblin. They all belong to the category of biological genes and are in the same vein. Judging from the results, the birth of the mutant, even if it is a technology and achievement from more than a decade ago, is definitely more in-depth and successful than Osborn's biological gene research. The two sides talked for a long time, and Connors' eyelids twitched. Anton turned his head. He looked at Connors lying on the ground with a smile, and said jokingly, "Since you have heard it all, do you still want to continue pretending to be dizzy?" Connors. "Dizzy from drinking. I fell asleep after writing this chapter. For details, please refer to the author's avatar. I knew this day would come, so I changed to this avatar early." Chapter 86, Evil Ghost. Philuric. The mutant. Connors couldn't hide it. He opened his eyes. His expression was complicated. He looked at the turtles and mice in front of him, who were similar to his lizardman state, with uncontrollable surprise and excitement in his eyes. The mutant is O'Neill. He died in a fire more than 10 years ago, and all his research results were burned. Unexpectedly, he succeeded before he died. Connors whispered to himself. Anton in front of him raised his eyebrows. It sounded like Connors knew April's father, Professor O'Neill, who used to work for Sykes. However, as top figures in the field of biological genetics, it is not surprising that the two had contact. The turtle and the mouse are both experimental subjects of the mutagen. Connors suddenly stared at the turtle that rose from the human body and the mouse Splinter, who sat cross-legged, and said, "With the mutagen, I may be able to perfect the genetic medicine, and even make a human enhancement medicine without side effects." Batman, is that your goal? It's just a coincidence. Anton had a blank expression on his face. He originally did not intend to use Connors, but planned to find someone else to study the mutagen, so as to help Norman Osborn return to normal and cure the family's genetic disease. After all, the Marvel world lacks talents the least. However, SHIELD did not give face, and Hawkeye's attitude was too tough, which made people unhappy. Then, Anton simply kept Connors. If Connors can really research biological genetic medicine and human enhancement medicine without side effects, it can be regarded as a contribution to society. Next, this is your cell, and also your research institute. Anton said lightly, "I will provide you with all the equipment you need. All you have to do is to research a biological genetic drug that can cure disabilities and has no side effects, as well as a human strengthening drug without side effects, as soon as possible. The turtle and the mouse will supervise you." After a pause, he continued, "Norman's schizophrenia is caused by you. In other words, you are also partly responsible for the Green Goblin incident." Connors, as Spider-Man said, "If you are really a good person with good intentions, then atone for yourself. This is your last chance." After saying this, regardless of whether Connors would refuse or not, Anton stood up and nodded to Splinter. "It's getting late. I should leave." "Okay." Splinter nodded. "Regarding the Bigfoot gang, let's do it as agreed. Then I'll leave the Green Goblin and Connors in your care." Anton glanced at Norman Osborn, who was still unconscious and seriously injured, and then at Kurt Connors, who was in excitement and could not refuse Anton's request, and walked into the only exit of the turtle dojo in the sewer. Soon, he lifted the Batman state, pushed open the sewer manhole cover, and climbed out of the dirty and messy environment, feeling that it was not easy for the turtles and mice. Cleaning the dojo in the sewer so cleanly, these turtles and the mouse Splinter who raised them since childhood are definitely in a difficult situation. Even in such a harsh environment, Splinter raised the purple eye mask turtle, Donatello, such a technology geek and top student. This is also a true portrayal of the saying that noble sons come from poor families since ancient times, right? Anton touched his chin and found an idiom to correspond. It should be hard to find a family more poor than the turtles and mice living in the sewer. Splinter the mouse taught himself to become a ninja master and taught the 4 turtles super ninjutsu, although compared with the turtles' abilities, it is more appropriate to call it martial arts. Later, he came to the vicinity of the Osborn building and contacted Eddie. Just as he was about to discuss with Eddie how to deal with the Bigfoot gang, he saw the 2 men quietly pulling him into an alley with a huge box in their hands. "What's in the box?" Anton saw the excited expressions of Eddie and Phil, and asked in surprise, "What did you 2 find?" "I just turned into Venom, and took Phil into the Osborn building for a tour. You will never guess what we found." Eddie smiled and opened the box in his hand. Anton was surprised to see this. In the box, there was a flying skateboard, a piece of Green Goblin armor, a small number of pumpkin bombs and demon throwing knives. In short, this is Norman Osborn's spare Green Goblin suit. "We found these things in Norman Osborn's office." Phil said excitedly, "Boss, Norman Osborn is the Green Goblin. This is big news. With these things, we can directly expose his identity. The controller of Osborn is actually a supervillain. This news should be considered carefully. The shareholders behind Osborn are much more powerful than the Life Foundation." Anton waved his hand and looked at the 2 with regret. "In addition, Norman is now imprisoned in the temporary prison I just found. His situation is very complicated because some drugs have damaged his mind, causing splitting and producing the personality of the Green Goblin. In short, the situation about the Green Goblin cannot be directly exposed as before. After a pause, he changed the subject. Of course, I will pay the bonus. Boss, I can give up the bonus, but... Phil heard this and smiled. He didn't seem to regret it. Instead, he looked at Eddie and plucked up the courage. Can I keep this suit? Anton was stunned. He suddenly realized that Eddie and Phil's purpose was not to expose the true identity of the Green Goblin, but to the Green Goblin's armor and equipment in front of them. I've tried it on, and this suit suits me very well. Phil was full of expectations. You are all superheroes. I also want to be one of you. And the Justice League. I want to join it. Boss, give me a chance. Eddie, you gave him this idea, right? Anton looked at Eddie beside him and laughed. Without your encouragement, Phil would not dare to say these words in front of me. Justice League, you really told him everything. Anton, I knew I couldn't hide it from you. Eddie was shameless, and then said, Phil has been through so many things with us. I think he is qualified enough to join the Justice League. Besides, when we are in action, we occasionally need someone to do logistics work, don't we? He chuckled, and there was no refusal in Anton's tone. Stay. Sure enough, Anton turned to Phil and said, since you want to be one of us, you have to work harder. Not only in the Daily Bugle, but also in the Justice League. You have to prove yourself. I will. Phil was extremely excited. By the way, have you thought of a nickname for yourself? Anton smiled and said, if you have the opportunity to appear next time, you can't be without a cool and loud nickname. Evil Ghost, how about Evil Ghost? Phil couldn't wait to answer. Obviously he already had the answer. Chapter 87 George is furious. Bigfoot gang's lackey. Seeing Phil blurt out, Anton looked strange. This name sounds like a bad guy. Phil thought Anton was not satisfied with the name. He explained, just like Venom, I like this name. In the future, I will work with Editor-in-Chief Eddie. Venom and the Abomination will become the nightmares of bad guys. It sounds good. It goes well with Venom. Anton nodded. Hearing the nickname Abomination, he suddenly recalled the true identity of Phil Urich. No wonder this guy has a lot of roles. It turns out that he is a fan character in the Ultimate Spider-Man. That is, the story of John Parker whose life was stolen by Dr. Octopus. Phil Urich, the second generation Abomination, is a reporter for the Daily Bugle and the right-hand man of Kingpin. The first generation Abomination is a fashion designer, Roderick Kingsley, who broke into Norman's laboratory by chance and stole his equipment. He naturally fell and became a famous villain. Later, Kingsley rented his identity and equipment to Phil Urich, who became the new Abomination. However, in this world, Phil might not have had the chance to contact Kingpin before Kingpin died. Under the guidance of Anton and Eddie, Phil gradually walked towards a bright path and joined the Justice League, which was just being established. He was considered a half-founder, which was increasingly in conflict with the original trajectory. Anton thought about it and didn't take it seriously. However, if Carnage used the mutant in the turtle's body to develop a new human enhancement potion, he could give it to Phil, whose physical fitness was just that of an ordinary person, which would make him more in line with the character of a superhero. Either mutation or technology. Phil has intense support, and he wants to do both things. Isn't it reasonable? Since you plan to use the remaining weapons of the Green Goblin, you can change the color of your appearance to avoid being thought that the Green Goblin has reappeared. Anton touched his chin and recalled the shape of the evil spirit. How about blue and red? It sounds good. I like it. Phil nodded excitedly. Seeing that Anton agreed to let him join the Justice League and keep the equipment stolen from Norman's office, he was willing to do anything, not to mention repainting the equipment, even if he was asked to run naked on a flying skateboard without clothes. Afterwards, Eddie dragged Phil back to the vicinity of the Osborn building and followed many colleagues to follow up the report. At this time, April took the lead in the interview team of Channel 6 News, because she followed Eddie to the scene early and got a lot of exclusive materials. Everyone was busy until the middle of the night. As for Anton, after returning home, he counted his gains. Resolve the Green Goblin incident and reward 6 million justice points. Current justice point balance 9 million. Calculated, it cost him 10 million to exchange for the Arkham Knight armor, plus the 6 million in the account. It actually only cost 4 million. It's not a loss. Anton pondered for a moment and thought of the Bigfoot gang that he had agreed to deal with the Big Rat Splinter. If nothing unexpected happens, after solving the Bigfoot gang, the balance of justice points should exceed 10 million again. With the upcoming Cyborg movie, a new Cyborg will be able to take on the battlefield after a cycle. The Marvel version of the Justice League is also being formed. The future is getting better and better. A few days later, the overwhelming news topics such as Green Goblin attacks New York and unlucky Osborn have become the topic of conversation after dinner. As the latest hotspot, the relevant reports of the Green Goblin incident have completely detonated New York and even the whole United States. But such an unlucky Osborn has been slow to speak out. Finally, the media with great powers found out that Norman Osborn was missing. After such a big incident, the Osborn building once again became the attack site of the bad guys, but the owner of the Osborn building, Norman Osborn, was missing. Of course, no one thought that this rich man who ranked first in the world would be the bad guy. No idiot would throw bombs on his own property when he was a bad guy. Therefore, the disappearance of Norman Osborn is generally believed to be killed by the Green Goblin during the attack. This has attracted the attention of countless netizens. The disappearance of Norman Osborn and the disappearance of Tony Stark have the same effect, even more exaggerated. Both of them are the souls of the company. The difference is that Osborn is really without a helmsman without Norman, while Stark Industries has lost Tony and many veterans who followed Tony's father Howard to establish Stark Industries, headed by Obadiah Stane. Besides, Norman still has a son, Harry Osborn. Normally, Harry will take over Norman's identity and take the position of chairman of Osborn. But will the many shareholders of Osborn let a high school student manage the company? It is conceivable that Osborn will usher in an unprecedented and extremely chaotic power struggle. And this has nothing to do with the Daily Bugle. After eating the dividends of the Green Goblin incident, mastering many on-site situations, and conducting follow-up interviews with George Stacy, the reputation of the Daily Bugle has expanded. Eddie's status has risen, and with the identity of New York's first star reporter, he has become an idol of countless journalism students and a celebrity on the internet. His new girlfriend, April, took this opportunity to gain a foothold in the 6th News channel, completely clearing up the previous malaise. On the other hand, Phil has been repainting the Green Goblin suit he got during this period. He now named it the Evil Ghost suit and added a red cape and hat to cover the Green Goblin armor that was changed to blue. In this way, there is almost no trace of the Green Goblin. The pumpkin bomb and the demon knife were sealed up by him, and he found the high table through Anton and customized a batch of new equipment with this as a core. The new superhero, the Evil Ghost, is making absolutely cool preparations for his first appearance. After solving the Green Goblin incident, based on the agreement with the Night Demon and Splinter, Anton ordered Eddie and others to turn their attention to the Bigfoot gang. The Bigfoot gang has been robbing the expensive chemical materials placed by Oscorp at the dock. They will not miss the opportunity of internal strife in Oscorp. Sure enough, robbery incidents frequently occurred at the dock. The New York Police Department task force was played around by the police. Even if they set up a tight net, the well-prepared Bigfoot gang always escaped in advance. There is no doubt that this is related to Sykes, who asked the New York Police Department task force to cooperate with Sykes. Under Anton's instructions, Eddie went to the dock in advance to wait. With the ability of Venom, he successfully took relevant photos and sent them to George Stacy, the commissioner of the New York Police Department, who had a good relationship with him. George Stacy was furious. He didn't expect that the cooperative company he trusted was actually a lackey of the Bigfoot gang. Thanks to the Deacon, the correct name of the mixed races bastard, for the reward. Thanks to Shianxi Vinegar, for the reward. I have something to do tonight. So I thought about it and just updated it in advance after I finished writing it. Exclamation mark. Chapter 88 Task Force Action. On this day, the New York Police Department's task force went out in full force, and their destination was the Sykes Company building. On the one hand, the Sykes Company building stored expensive chemical materials that the Bigfoot gang had robbed from Oscorp. On the other hand, of course, it was because the Sykes Company was a lackey of the Bigfoot gang, and it had betrayed the trust of the New York Police Department and George. After confirming the authenticity of the intelligence, George, in a rage, assembled the task force and prepared to sweep through the Sykes Company and the Bigfoot gang with a thunderous force. Eddie kept an eye on the New York Police Department. The moment George and others left the police station, he went downstairs from the Daily Bugle, came to the DC Company floor, found Anton, and smiled. The show is about to begin. Are the little turtles ready? Anton looked calm. As the man behind the scenes, he had long anticipated this scene. Always be prepared. Based on the contact in the past few days, Eddie was full of confidence in the turtles. For this day, they have been preparing for thousands of days and nights. The Bigfoot gang and the Ninja Turtles are destined enemies. The Bigfoot gang is the representative of evil in the eyes of the turtles. The goal they have been instilled by Splinter since childhood is to defeat the Bigfoot gang. Now, the day has come to achieve their goal. Let's go. The show is about to begin, and we can't do it without an audience. Anton followed Eddie to Sykes. At this time, the New York Police Department task force has arrived at Sykes and surrounded the Sykes building, not intending to let go of a fly. The aggressive appearance made the ordinary employees in the building very panic. The boss of Sykes, Eric Sykes, was unusually calm, as if he had been prepared for it. Calais, are our people here? Sykes looked at the island female ninja beside him. Calais looked cold and murderous. She remained calm when she heard the question and replied, Master Shredder has come to Sykes Company. You can evacuate first with the experimental materials. Understood. Sykes nodded, turned and walked towards the helicopter landing pad on the top floor of the building. At the same time, he ordered the researchers to take away the latest experimental results and destroy all the materials on the spot. The goal of Sykes Company is to develop a powerful biochemical gas and cover the entire New York. In this terrorist attack, Sykes Company will become the savior, carrying the antidote and controlling life and death. However, the gas has been developed, but the antidote is still far away. Without the antidote, Sykes and the Bigfoot gang would not take the initiative to release the gas. After all, what they want is to dominate New York and even the world as the savior, not to create a chaotic wasteland. Even if the police came to their door, they did not think they did anything wrong. It was just a pity that they were exposed too early and had to find another way before the plan was implemented. Boom! Exclamation mark. After several calls from the New York Police Department task force led by George, no one responded from inside the Sykes Corporation building. Ordinary employees surrendered voluntarily and were guarded by the New York Police Department, waiting to be questioned afterwards, while none of the relevant researchers and thugs spoke out. This made George even more angry. At his command, the task force rushed into the Sykes Corporation building. Tear gas and flash bombs were thrown into the lobby on the first floor, hiding behind the wall among the crowd of thugs waiting in full battle array. Then, the guns in the hands of the task force members erupted with flames. Bang, bang, bang. Bullets flew through the air, repelling many thugs. The task force attacked steadily, and the enemies on all sides were suppressed by their powerful firepower. With all their efforts, the thugs of the Bigfoot gang had not posed a threat to the task force. What George and others didn't know was that the real masters hadn't come out yet. The rooftop of the building, the helipad. Sykes held the gas canister and prepared to leave the city and find a place to hide his identity. For a rich man like him, living underground is not the end, but just another beginning. This is not called a comeback, because the sun never sets. But just when the helicopter rose a few meters, the propellers were cut off by something, and the whole helicopter crashed onto the tarmac, almost smashing through the tarmac. What's going on? Sykes was furious, and he looked out of the cabin and saw a figure with a flying cape standing in front of him. His face changed drastically. Batman. Sykes building, first floor lobby. A man wearing a full body of Silver Warrior armor crashed through the wall like a tank and came to the lobby. Under the excited eyes of the thugs, he rushed into the task force. The guns in the hands of the task force members posed no threat to the man in the Silver Warrior armor. Ding 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 ding. The bullets were bounced off the hard armor. The man in the Silver Warrior armor showed a contemptuous expression on his face under the helmet. Is this the NYPD's task force? He stood in the middle of the floor and sneered. Nothing special. You are quite capable to have found this far, Chief Stacy. Then, Shredder spoke slowly again, his voice low and powerful. "But, I'm sorry to disappoint you. The Bigfoot gang is not so easy to deal with. Shred?" George showed a solemn expression. From the information sent by Eddie, he knew Shredder's identity. Before commanding the task force to come to the Sykes building, he also ordered people to go to the Shredder dojo in Brooklyn. Obviously, that team had no effect on Shredder at all. Why are there so many monsters in armor now? George couldn't help but curse. Shredder ignored the attack of the task force and rushed straight to George, who was standing behind the task force. The bullets could not break Shredder's armor. Shredder moved forward all the way. His posture was extremely rough, arrogant, and unreasonable, and he overturned all the task force members who blocked his way. George didn't think of running away. As the chief of the New York Police Department, it was a disgrace for him to escape while fighting crime. George never feared death. Moreover, he felt that he still had a chance. Therefore, he took out his gun and kept pulling the trigger while dodging his body, intending to keep a distance. Shredder was a ninja master after all, and his understanding of fighting was far beyond George's. Soon, Shredder came in front of George. Kai. A sharp knife sprang out from his armored right forearm. In the sun, the sharp knife reflected a dazzling light. George swallowed his saliva. Behind him was a wall, and in front of him was Shredder wearing silver samurai armor. He had nowhere to go. "There are still superheroes in New York. You won't succeed." George gritted his teeth. Humph. Shredder was too lazy to listen to his nagging and thrust out the sharp knife. Boom. A figure suddenly appeared above his head, falling like a meteor, like a huge rock with terrifying power, stepping Shredder to the ground. George managed to escape. He stared at the figure in front of him, stunned for a moment. "George, I saved you again." Anton, wearing armor, only showed his chin and the corner of his mouth, and smiled. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89 George's Thoughts. Batman. George was surprised and delighted. "I knew you wouldn't let the Bigfoot gang mess up." Batman. Shredder, who was stepped on by Anton, shouted angrily. His arms were like hedgehogs, and sharp knives came out of his arms. He turned over and chopped at Anton. Whoosh. Anton pulled George and dodged back to the door of the Sykes Company building. Outside the door, a few fearless onlookers saw the appearance of Batman and shouted like crazy fans. Of course, they did not ignore the danger, which was still far away. "Batman. Come on, Batman. Kill those thugs." The amazing shouts spread, making George beside Anton feel helpless. It can be seen that Batman's popularity in New York has reached an unusual level. Even when the New York Police Department task force was in action, no one gave them any encouragement, not even a come on sound, and they were all spectators watching the excitement. It's not like now, as if they were at Batman's concert, with a group of people cheering and supporting him. Thinking back, George looked at Shredder in front of him, wearing silver warrior armor, with a solemn face. "Batman, will you leave him to the New York Police Department this time?" George was not afraid that Batman would not take action, but he was afraid that Batman would take Shredder away again, after dealing with him. If he was taken away by Batman again this time, it would be a bit difficult to explain to the higher-ups. But then, George heard an answer that he did not expect. "You shouldn't ask me this question," Anton said. "His opponent is not me. Today, I'm just a spectator." What? George was confused and did not understand what Batman was talking about. How could Shredder's opponent not be you? You want to be a spectator? Look at the audience behind you. Will they let you be a spectator? A series of questions instantly filled George's mind, and then he saw a shocking scene again. Several turtles suddenly broke through the wall of the hall, came to the first floor of the hall, and stood in front of George. George turned to look at Batman. "Who are they? Why are they here?" "They are Shredder's opponents," Anton said lightly. "Turtles." Shredder was slightly stunned, then glared at Batman, not taking the turtles in front of him seriously at all. "Let them be my opponents." "Batman, do you really not take me seriously?" Shredder growled. The dignity of a strong man made him extremely unhappy with the contempt in Batman's words. Swish. He shook his arm and the sharp knife stood up again. Then, his arm danced, and the sharp knife attached to it suddenly ejected, like a torrential rain, densely packed, connected into a line, rushing towards where Anton and George were. The sharp knife cut through the air and whizzed over. George's face changed slightly. Batman beside him did not move a step, calm and composed. Relax, George. Anton even had the mood to comfort George. The turtles will help the task force deal with the Bigfoot gang. Clank clank clank. The turtles took the initiative to step forward, waving their weapons to block the series of sharp knife attacks. The sound of metal clashing resounded. 4 turtles surrounded Shredder alone, entangled back and forth. What on earth are they? George swallowed his saliva, looking at the agile skills of several turtles and their incredible appearance, recalling the Lizard Man incident not long ago. Batman, are you sure they are really not accomplices of the Lizard Man? Of course, they are creatures created by the Bigfoot gang. Anton did not hide it from George and explained, this is a revenge. It is their revenge on the Bigfoot gang. After listening to Batman's explanation, George was still a little confused. But at least he figured out that these turtles were his own people, not supervillains. Are you really not going to help? There was another silence, and George couldn't help asking. The battle between the 4 turtles and Shredder was so fierce that even the members of the task force who were defeated gradually retreated, leaving the battlefield to both sides. They didn't dare to shoot at this time because they were afraid of accidental injuries. Both sides moved too fast and changed their positions at any time. If they were not top gunmen, it would be difficult to help at this time. Besides, Shredder's Silver Warrior armor was bulletproof. And the 4 turtles. From the last Green Goblin incident, the turtles broke through the task force's defense line and ignored their bullets. It can also be seen that the turtle shell is not more fragile than the Silver Warrior armor. They don't need them at all. Besides, even if the turtles lose, doesn't Batman standing next to the director have a backup? In everyone's opinion, Batman's appearance this time is basically to train his younger brothers. Obviously, these turtles are Batman's younger brothers. Just like Spider-Man who appeared in the Green Goblin incident and obeyed Batman's orders. They are all animal superheroes, but it is this Bat who holds the dominant power. Probably because the Bat's fist is hard enough. No one can look down on me. Shredder struggled with the 4 turtles for a long time without success and couldn't help but let out an extremely angry roar. His thoughts were the same as those of the task force members. Several turtles were Batman's subordinates. The reason why Batman appeared here and didn't attack him was clearly to use him to train his subordinates. He was using him as a stepping stone. The arrogant ninja master, Shredder, could never accept this result. He didn't know that these turtles were actually experimental subjects in the experiment of the Sykes Company more than 10 years ago. The experiment was led by his adopted son and subordinate Eric Sykes. Shredder only knew about the gas plan and didn't know the specific operation content. Of course, even if he understood and realized that several turtles had a grudge against the Bigfoot gang, his inner anger would not be reduced in the slightest. Because what Batman did at this time was exactly what he thought. He just looked down on him. You will pay the price. Shredder gritted his teeth, anger clouding his mind, and he began to fight against several turtles. He overturned Leonardo, who was wielding a samurai steel knife, and punched down Michelangelo, who was wielding nunchakus, and looked at Donatello and Raphael who were blocking the way. Our fight is not over yet. I won't let you pass. Raphael said firmly. That's right. Donatello interrupted and said in a deep voice, if you want to fight Batman, kill a few of us first. Your opponents are us. Behind Shredder, Leonardo and Michelangelo, who were knocked down, stood up again. One picked up a samurai steel knife, and the other wielded a nunchaku. The same firm look filled their faces. Not far away, Anton smiled. George was inexplicably shocked when he saw this scene. He came back to his senses and suddenly thought of an idea, so he asked tentatively, Batman, these turtles should be superheroes who are about to debut, right? What do you want to say? Anton still stared at the battlefield and glanced at George who was nervous and expectant, not understanding why. Since you want to train them, have you ever thought about letting them join the New York Police Department's task force? George rubbed his hands, showing a smile that he wanted to take advantage of, and said seriously, the task force is in great need of talent support now. Well, turtles are also a kind of talent. I will welcome them very much. Chapter 90, a heavy punch like a cannon. Shredder is looking for trouble. Anton turned around and looked at George, quite surprised. He really didn't expect that George would invite the turtles to join the task force on behalf of the New York Police Department. However, from George's point of view, this is also the best way for the police department to change. During this period, various enemies and events have emerged one after another. When the New York Police Department's task force was first established, it was to combat criminals and the criminal activities of underground forces such as gangs. However, since the Lizard Man incident, for a long time, the task force has not only been fooled by the enemy, but its own combat capabilities have also been hit by these monsters for a long time. If it were an ordinary gang, it would be okay, and the task force would also have a remarkable record. But once you encounter an abnormal situation, such as the Green Goblin and Shredder, these two weird characters in armor, it is really hard to guard against. And after the appearance of the Lizard Man and the Turtle Man, George dare not guarantee that there will be no Rhino Man or even Ant-Man in the future. Who knows if Batman and Spider-Man will become Batman and Spider-Man one day. No matter what, the combat effectiveness of these guys is beyond the New York Police Department's understanding of criminals. To be honest, the equipment configuration of the task force has reached the peak of what George can do, but the role it can play is almost zero when facing these extraordinary people. If it weren't for Batman's daily support, George would have been forced to give up because of these events. Let the Ninja Turtles join the New York Police Department's task force. Although it was just a sudden idea, George was really serious. George knew that Batman came and went without a trace, and was an uncontrollable person. There was no possibility of him joining the New York Police Department. Spider-Man seemed to be very busy too. Looking at his figure, that was completely inconsistent with his strength. It would not be an exaggeration to say that he was a stunted high school student. Maybe he was still worrying about his studies in some school. As for Venom, he was too ugly, and it would be scary to come out, so he was not considered. Only these turtles looked more suitable. Moreover, George could tell from the willpower and faith that the turtles were all decent guys when they faced Shredder. Although it was only the second time they met, George admired them. I won't make the decision for them. Anton pondered for a moment and said seriously, but I think they won't refuse your invitation. The four turtles have lived in a dark, dirty and messy sewer since they were young. Their recognition of humans and their desire to enter and exit society freely are unattainable for most people in the world. They have been hiding all their lives and can only go out disguised as citizens dressed as turtles during the Halloween parade. In the original plot, the turtles accepted such a life calmly, but it does not mean that this is the life they really want. They must have thought about standing in the sun, walking on the busy streets, and accepting the eyes of passers-by. No matter whether this look is curiosity, surprise, or contempt. For a normal person, if you can stand in the sun openly, who would choose to live in a dark place where you can never see the sun? Anton thought for a moment and said, even if they agree, you still need to convince a guy. Of course, I don't think he will be a hindrance to you. Who? George wondered. A rat. Anton said, you'll see him after the battle. Another rat man. Oh my god, what happened to this world? George felt his head buzzing, and everything he just imagined seemed to be coming true soon. During their conversation, the battle between the turtles and Shredder entered a white-hot stage. The turtles must have used up all their breastfeeding strength when they were young. They used all their lives learning to defeat Shredder. Shredder was not a simple guy either. With his samurai armor, his movements did not seem clumsy, and the blades on his arms were equipped with magnetic devices, so they could return to their original positions like boomerangs after being thrown out. The endless fighting methods made the turtles exhausted. However, they finally found a way to crack the samurai armor, which was to attack the joints of the armor, destroy or jam the transmission system inside the samurai armor. Leonardo swung the samurai steel knife and stuck it at Shredder's knee, directly controlling Shredder's arm. On the other side, Raphael lay on Shredder's back and stabbed Shredder's shoulders with steel forks in both hands. Donatello and Michelangelo attacked Shredder's ribs on both sides. Boom. Shredder was completely controlled. Just a few turtles. Shredder clenched his fists and struggled hard. He turned his body and threw away the 4 turtles that locked him. At the same time, the samurai armor on his body also made a sound of being overwhelmed. Crack. The joints were damaged by the steel knife and steel fork, and cracks appeared. The transmission system inside the armor was blocked, causing Shredder to move slower. Shredder's movements froze, but he didn't care about his declining state. Instead, he took this opportunity to look at Batman, who was acting as a spectator not far away. "It's your turn." Shredder's face under the warrior helmet showed a grim smile. He only considered action, never failure. Bang! The floor of the hall shattered, and a deep pit appeared. The spider web-like cracks spread wildly. The 4 turtles who were thrown away were shocked. Instead of feeling worried, they began to mourn for Shredder. "Isn't it good to fight with yourself? You have to look for abuse. You said it would be reasonable if you were in your peak state, but the warrior armor is almost half broken, and you still do this?" Shredder stepped on his feet and flew up. In the process, the sharp knife scattered on the ground returned to the original position of his arms, from top to bottom, carrying huge power, fiercely slashing at Batman next to George. George's face changed slightly. However, Batman stood beside him, not moving a step, and he didn't dare to retreat. With eyes wide open, they watched Shredder approach. He was so aggressive, like a huge rock rolling down the hillside, ready to crush anyone who stood in his way. The sound of the knife piercing the air and Shredder's angry and powerful shouts intertwined into an invisible net that enveloped everyone present, including the 4 turtles, George, the task force members, and Anton, who was transformed into Batman. At the critical moment, Anton clenched his fists, took a wrong step, and leaned slightly. Feeling the strong wind that broke out when Shredder swung the knife, he aimed at the connection between Shredder's helmet and upper body armor, that is, the neck position. The heavy punch was like a cannonball, and it came out with a bang. Bang! Exclamation mark. This punch seemed to stir up the airflow, and landed hard on Shredder's neck. Crack, crack, crack. Everyone seemed to hear the sound of bones dislocating in Shredder's body. Then, Shredder's body, wearing a warrior's armor, flew sideways like a rag doll, smashed through the wall of the first floor hall, and was covered by broken bricks. After this scene, the whole audience was silent as death. End of chapter 91. George's invitation. It's Batman. After an unknown amount of time, a member of the task force swallowed his saliva and muttered to himself. In the environment, where you can hear a pin drop, this sentence is like a fuse, triggering cheers from all the witnesses. The members of the task force were almost in a state of madness. They were different from the spectators outside. As members of the New York Police Department who were on the scene, they had a heavier sense of responsibility. During this period of time, Batman appeared one after another, turning the tide and saving New York from danger. The most direct beneficiary was not the citizens of New York, but the New York Police Department. The appearance of Batman helped the New York Police Department deal with many crises that were beyond its capabilities. Speaking of Batman's fan base, I'm afraid that in the New York Police Department, Batman's dead fans, or even brain-dead fans, have occupied 2/3 of the police force. Many police officers regard Batman as a role model. To some extent, their chief, George Stacy, is also an admirer of Batman. Not far away, the 4 turtles stood up, not at all surprised by what had just happened. As early as when Batman contacted them and asked them to go out, they knew that they would definitely win this battle. Although Shredder is powerful, Batman's outstanding record is not fake. Even if the 4 of them can't do anything to Shredder, can Batman still do nothing to this gang leader? The only regret is probably that the 4 of them failed to really take down Shredder in one go. Of course, the contribution they just made in the battle cannot be ignored. If it weren't for the entanglement and destruction of the 4 of them, Shredder would not be knocked down by Batman with one punch, even if he was weak. After all, that silver warrior armor looks like ordinary technology. However, it is conceivable that according to the situation just now, if the entanglement continues for a long time, Shredder will definitely lose to the 4 turtles. Rounding it off, It can be regarded as their achievement. Amid the cheers of the crowd, a figure in the corner was frantically pressing the shutter, passionately taking photos of the scene, with a happy expression. Batman contributed another famous scene photo. Shredder was punched and flew away. The boss of the Bigfoot gang that caused chaos in New York, the mastermind behind the scenes, ended up like Kingpin. There is no doubt that with this photo, the Daily Bugle will be able to take the first place in tomorrow's hot topic and suppress the Green Goblin incident, which has lost its popularity. The follow-up of the Green Goblin incident now is nothing more than the true identity and whereabouts of the Green Goblin and the internal strife of Oscorp caused by the Green Goblin incident. There are gossip rumors that Harry Osborn, who is only a high school student, intends to use the help of the company's elders to control Oscorp and regain the dominance lost due to the disappearance of Norman Osborn. Oscorp should be in the hands of Osborn. Many netizens echoed and hoped that Oscorp would fight on the spot. They are eager to watch the excitement, and their expectations for Oscorp even surpass the news media. Of course, this is all off topic. At this time, Eddie didn't know that George planned to invite the four turtles to join the New York Police Department task force. Otherwise, he would definitely be entangled in tomorrow's front page news, whether to put Batman's photo or release this explosive and groundbreaking news. Eddie was still in the corner, quietly taking pictures. "It's over, I'm leaving first." Anton retracted his fist, and seeing that the task force members and turtles around him had come to their senses, he smiled and said, "Also, Eric Sykes was hung upside down by me on the helipad on the rooftop of the building. You'd better go and get him down as soon as possible." After that, he left the Sykes building and rushed into the sun. The shadows between the buildings disappeared. Seeing this, the four turtles looked at the New York Police Department and others who were actively dealing with the aftermath. They pulled Shredder, who was unconscious and had a crooked neck, out of his armor, handcuffed him, and escorted him to the prison van. Then, the four turtles, who were free of trouble, were about to leave quietly through the hole in the wall. When they were in action, they were stopped by George, who had been watching them. "Wait." George came to the four turtles and said sincerely, "Thank you for this time. It's my duty." The captain of the turtles, Leonardo, spoke up. He said calmly, "This is our mission." After that, he was about to leave. "Wait. I have something else to do." George stopped him again. The turtles turned their heads and looked at George, not knowing what the New York Police Commissioner was going to say. "Well, I have an idea." George looked at the turtles and said seriously, "Leonardo, Raphael, Michelangelo, and Donatello. I just asked Batman your names, but of course this is not the point. What I'm going to say is, I want to invite you to join the New York Police Department task force and become one of us. If you are willing, the New York Police Department will welcome you very much." After saying this, the four turtles were stunned. Eddie, who was huddled in the corner to follow the filming, was also stunned when he heard this. Not only them, but also the task force members who heard this were stunned. However, the task force members did not think that there was anything wrong with George's approach, but were excited. The abilities of the four turtles have been thoroughly demonstrated in front of them in the battle just now. If they can become colleagues of themselves and others, they will be guaranteed to go on missions. Most importantly, these four turtles seem to have a deep connection with Batman, which means that the New York Police Department has a channel to ask Batman for help at any time. Isn't this a good thing? "What?" Leonardo couldn't help but ask back. "What did you just say? Say it again." "I want to invite you to join the New York Police Department's task force." George repeated sincerely, "We are willing." Michelangelo spoke happily, without asking for the opinions of his companions. He directly answered on behalf of the whole team. The other three turtles looked at each other and didn't say anything against it. "If we join the task force, will the New York Police Department ask us to appear in a secret image?" Donatello hesitated, looking at George in front of him, hesitant, as if he was afraid of getting a positive answer. "No." George said firmly. "Batman suggested that we publish your image. I think his suggestion makes sense. After all, if New York citizens knew that we had a few more special people, they would definitely look at the New York Police Department with new eyes. In this case, we are willing to join the New York Police Department task force." At this time, all the hesitation disappeared, and the four turtles spoke together and gave a positive answer. "By the way, Chief George, you should not mind going with us to see the teacher, right?" Leonardo said, and suddenly spoke. "Teacher?" George thought of the mouse in Batman's mouth and nodded. "I will do my best to convince your teacher." Eddie doesn't care what they say now. After receiving big news one after another, he just kept pressing the shutter to take pictures of George and the four turtles, and he felt happy. Thanks to Metron, Jiang Home, and Book Friends 201810041635563330 for the rewards. Crab. Also, it seems to be released this Friday. I'm not sure. A little panicked. Please collect it. Please vote for it. Please recommend it. Chapter 92 premiere. See Tony again. The New York Police Department returned from Sykes with a full load. The Bigfoot gang was destroyed. Shredder, the mastermind behind the scenes, was arrested. The crowds gathered outside also got some new gossip, and many people even saw Batman, which made them very excited. George did not rush to follow the task force back to the police station, but went into the sewer with the turtles, and came to the dojo in the sewer, where the four turtles had lived since childhood, which was also the home of the turtles. Here, he saw a rat man. With a nervous mood, George communicated with Splinter. After a while, George left the dojo with confidence, followed by four turtles. The group entered the New York Police Department openly. At the same time, George thought of Eddie, whom he saw during the operation at Sykes. It is necessary to report the news of the turtles joining through authoritative media, so that all New York citizens will know the changes in the New York Police Department and the strength of the new members. So he called the Daily Bugle. Eddie took Phil and rushed to the New York Police Department, recording the whole process and even interviewing the four turtles. The next day, the turtles joined the New York Police Department and crushed the Green Goblin incident, which was still hot and became a big news. In the photo, the four turtles were in a fighting posture with handsome movements. Through the turtle interview in the Daily Bugle, the story about the four turtles was revealed, and people gave them a name, called Ninja Turtles. Although the citizens of New York were very unfamiliar with the four fledgling turtles, the image of the turtles was so shocking that no one could ignore it. Just like the Lizard Man incident that happened not long ago. If there was no official guarantee, no one would think that these fierce and evil aliens would be good people. Citizens talked about it. Many media secretly interviewed members of the New York Police Department and found that these police officers expressed great approval of the turtles joining. At the same time, the Daily Bugle revealed another big news, adding fuel to the heat. The turtles are Batman's little brother. Yesterday, the turtles made great contributions to the New York Police Department's operation, and the reason why Batman appeared was because he was training these four turtles. Netizens were excited and talked about it. The two parties involved in the incident did not pay much attention to the public opinion on the internet. The turtles are enjoying their lives in the sun. George specially arranged an office for them in the New York Police Department and transformed the sewer entrance next to the parking lot into their exclusive passage. The turtles are enjoying their current life. As for the other party, Anton, he had rushed to Los Angeles overnight and was attending the premiere of the Cyborg movie. After a relatively short period of preparation, the movie was finally about to be released. Anton even sent an invitation to Tony Stark at Jim's suggestion. As for whether this guy would come to the premiere, he didn't know. Outside the venue, celebrities gathered. The grand premiere, with the careful preparation of Jim and others, started on time. One luxury car after another stopped at the end of the red carpet, and world-famous movie stars walked down from them, smiling and waving to the media and the audience. Reporters kept pressing the shutter, and the sound of clicks was endless. According to the plan, Harry Osborn would also come to the premiere and walk the red carpet. But after Norman disappeared, the internal struggle of Osborn quickly entered a white-hot stage. As the center of the power vortex, Harry certainly didn't have time to come, but he wished Anton a big box office success. Before hanging up the phone, Harry hesitated for a long time. Knowing that the Daily Bugle had a close relationship with Batman, he couldn't help asking a question. Anton, do you also think my father is dead? It's hard to say. Anton's answer was vague. However, when he hung up the phone, he didn't forget to wish Harry good luck. Let's get back to the point. After the participants walked the red carpet, the last to come on stage were the main creative team. Including Anton, the main creative members quickly crossed the red carpet. As behind the scenes personnel, they were not interested in staying on this long red carpet for a long time. Of course, according to the original process, Anton still stood in front of the huge poster and accepted the interview. Director Anton, what are your expectations for your new movie? I heard that Batman appeared in New York again, and the Daily Bugle has a close relationship with Batman. Does the Daily Bugle have any interview plans about Batman? What kind of movie is Cyborg? It is expected to be getting better and better. There is no interview plan with Batman for the time being. Cyborg is a good movie. After Anton answered, he was about to enter the venue when he saw an Audi car driving at the end of the red carpet. The main creative team was the last to walk the red carpet. Why did another person come at this time? Who loves to be late so much? He stopped and stared at the car in front of the red carpet. A slightly fat figure got out of the driver's seat. It's Happy Hogan, Tony Stark's bodyguard. Tony in the car. A reporter recognized the driver's identity at a glance. Then, who is the person in the car? There is no need to elaborate. Tony Stark actually came to the premiere. Hasn't he disappeared since he came back from Afghanistan? Why did he suddenly show up? The reporters talked about it. At the same time, a group of people swarmed towards the Audi car. Tony, how did you come to the premiere? Excuse me, do you know the recent situation of Stark Industries? Are you really planning to close the weapons manufacturing department of Stark Industries? Stark Industries' internal statement said that you are mentally ill due to a concussion. Is that true? The reporter squeezed Tony in the middle like crazy. As a person who has lived under the spotlight since childhood, Tony Stark saw this crowded scene without changing his expression and gave a light-hearted answer. Someone invited me, so I came. Stark Industries? Sorry, I won't answer any questions related to Stark Industries for the time being. Happy in front of Tony was sweating profusely. He tried his best to block the siege of reporters for him and squeezed out a path. He finally relaxed until he walked into the venue. Tony Stark stood still and looked at his old friend who was waiting for him in the venue. He said with a smile, Anton, I heard that when Batman was released, some people spread the word that I was dead and said that the movie was my last work. I heard that too. Those people are really abominable. Anton walked up to Tony and shook his hand without blushing or beating his heart. He smiled and said, but I didn't expect you to come. I've been at home for so long. Come out and breathe some fresh air. Tony still stared at Anton with a smile, but didn't ask any further questions. Then he took a seat and waited for the movie to start. Thanks to the Red and White Master Ball for the reward. Chapter 93 Cyborg is released. Victor Stone is a lively boy who loves sports and dreams of becoming a professional football player. His parents are both researchers in top laboratories, so he has lived in a privileged environment since he was a child. Victor's father, Silas Stone, has been immersed in work and rarely gives Victor love, but his mother's presence makes up for this shortcoming. When his father was keen on work, his mother gave more care to Cyborg in life, but the good times did not last long. Victor's mother, Irina Betty, suddenly fell seriously ill. Silas used alien technology to extend Irina's life, but Irina still died 10 years later. At this time, Victor was already a high school student and won the title of star player in the high school football game. The dramatic changes in the family caused the relationship between Victor and his father Silas to deteriorate rapidly. Because of the death of his wife, Silas, who was distraught, chose to numb himself with his career and continue the research of alien technology. However, Victor was growing up and constantly reflecting on his relationship with his father. He planned to repair this family relationship and send Silas a ticket to his own game. But he didn't expect that Silas never came to watch his game and even missed his championship moment. Victor was very angry and prepared to talk to Silas for the last time. Victor finally met Silas at the Star Laboratory where Silas worked. Silas told Victor that he was not obsessed with work because of his wife's death, but also because the Earth was facing threats. Superhumans everywhere, and even aliens, were eyeing the Earth. and the experiments on related alien technology he was studying were more important than Victor's game. After hearing this, Victor was about to leave in frustration. The laboratory suddenly exploded. The explosion was caused by the Apocalypse Mother box that Silas was studying in the laboratory. Victor was on the verge of death. Silas had experienced the blow of his wife's death and didn't want to see the tragedy repeat itself, so he took Victor to the Red Room laboratory. With the help of various alien technologies collected by the authorities in the Red Room laboratory, nanorobots covered Victor's whole body and replaced all necrotic body tissues, and Victor successfully saved his life. At the same time, during the rescue process, due to the influence of the Apocalypse Mother box, and Victor absorbing all the high-tech in the Red Room, when he opened his eyes, he saw a metal robot. Victor was stunned. He had to accept the reality, that is, he had become a half-human half-mechanical cyborg. In the movie, with the help of the technical optimization of special effects master Quentin Beck, the special effects in the movie are like a scene in the real world. The image of Steel Bone is presented to everyone. Tony, who is in the best viewing area, couldn't help but squint his eyes. The pictures in the movie brought him some inspiration. Just like Batman's power armor, this half-human, half-mechanical cyborg seems to be surprisingly similar to his current situation. Reaching out and touching the mechanical heart in his chest, which is also the energy source of the armor, Tony fell into silence, but he was interested in his heart and continued to stare at the screen in front of him, wanting to see how the next story would develop. After becoming a half-human, half-mechanical cyborg, Victor Stone mastered many special abilities: superhuman strength, endurance and stamina. Moreover, most of his body has been replaced by machinery, and he can fly through jets and transform into many weapons. Most importantly, Victor's brain has been transformed into a quantum computer, which keeps pace with the internet 24 hours a day. It is also the brain that has been transformed into a quantum computer that has had a serious impact on him, which means that he will continue to face the pressure of information bombardment. In order to solve the problem, Victor developed a computer program to help him stay focused. He called this computer program Grid. The story progresses step by step. The task of the grid is to collect and process Victor's daily data, but unknowingly, it gradually gave birth to self-awareness and became an artificial intelligence. The grid believes that he is a machine half of the steel skeleton, and Victor is the human half. Only by destroying Victor can he experience true feelings. The grid, who is obsessed with obtaining human emotions, betrayed Victor and forcibly stripped off the metal mechanical part of Victor when Victor was experimenting with his own abilities. But at the critical moment, Silas saved Victor. The grid ran along the network cable. As an excellent artificial intelligence, the grid's ability is absolutely beyond 90% of the researchers in the world. The only thing it lacks is probably human emotions and creativity. However, with the existing technology, it is enough for the grid to create a powerful body. In order to stop the disaster he created, Victor frantically chased the grid in the real world and the cyber world, and had a fierce confrontation with the grid. As expected, Victor not only destroyed the body that the grid created, but also completely defeated the grid in the digital world with his brain, transformed into a computer. The grid was imprisoned in the mechanical body of Victor. At the end of the movie, Victor changed his body and started a new life. The artificial intelligence, the grid, was forever imprisoned in the old mechanical body that Victor replaced. Afterwards, Victor was exposed to the public and was called Steelbone. The main film of the movie ended. Easter egg part. When Victor was dormant, many images kept appearing in his mind, haunting him like a nightmare. Apocalypse, Mother Box, Darkseid. The picture suddenly turned black, and then a pair of scalded eyes opened, filled with evil and violent breath. At the same time, the picture vaguely came from the communication between Victor and his father Silas. In the process of rescuing you, we used a lot of alien technology. Affected by alien technology, there is some residual information in your brain, which is the enemy who is eyeing the Earth. Victor, do what you should do. The dark screen suddenly appeared again. In the laboratory, Batman appeared and found Cyborg, who was busy. Victor, I don't need to introduce myself, Batman said. Cyborg looked at this man and was a little surprised. It seemed that he didn't expect Batman to appear in front of him. I plan to form an alliance to deal with some emergencies. Batman said, I call it Justice League. Swish. The lights in the venue came on. Everyone knew that the movie was completely over. The main creative team headed by Anton came on stage and created a happy atmosphere under the interaction of the host. They didn't notice that Tony, who was in the best viewing area, was lost in thought. Artificial intelligence. Tony thought of his own Jarvis. It's not that he suspected Jarvis would betray him, but mainly because in the movie, Victor Stone, nicknamed Cyborg, seemed to have some overlap with himself. However, his body is not as exaggerated as Cyborg's, and it cannot be called half human and half machine, which is equivalent to a more thorough heart bypass. In any case, this movie brought him some inspiration. You can make more restrictions on Jarvis's authority. Tony touched his chin. If Anton knew Tony's thoughts, he would definitely wonder whether Ultron, the half-son of Iron Man, can still come out. Although Cyborg has not been released yet, it is said that it is filmed about the origin, so I feel that this is how it is filmed, more or less. Cyborg's story is very simple, roughly like this. Of course, based on the background of this book, some parts in the middle are blurred and modified, such as the process of Victor becoming Cyborg, which is somewhat different from the animation Justice League War, and the name and cause of death of Cyborg's mother. I found two names! Exclamation mark. Alana Stone and Irina Betty. I really don't know the details, but I feel that the latter one is more reliable, so I use the latter name. The cause of death is what I wrote in the comics, but in the movie version, it seems to be changed to death in the same accident as Victor. Anyway, that's it. Also, I just asked the editor, and it should be confirmed that it will be on the shelves tomorrow. Let me get some emotions in motion, and I'll post a few words about my gratitude for the launch later. Chapter 94. Remarks on the release. I wrote 1.5 chapters, and suddenly I ran into a writer's block. I might as well write a few words about the release of this book. First of all, I want to thank the editor Yai, who gave me a lot of advice. But Y has changed his job now, so I can only wish him good luck in his other job and a bright future. Then, let me talk about why I started with Batman. First, the Batman I wrote in my last book was just an original background, called Possessed from Batman onwards. However, when I wrote the last book, I was a senior and facing graduation. I was originally planning to study abroad, to get a graduate degree, but I encountered the epidemic. It can be said that this was the most irritable period of my life since I was born, so the more I wrote, the more irritated I became, and then it became a waste. I mentioned the name of the last book, just to let you scold me, because I saw the readers of the last book in this book. What I remember most clearly is Super Saiyan 4, and you gave me a reward of a butler in the last book. I'm sorry. Well, I don't know if you can read this, but I apologize to you first. Second, there are too many books that start with Superman. With so many good books before, I can't write anything fancy. I'm too lazy to embarrass myself. Besides, I don't like Superman and prefer Batman. It's probably because Nolan's Batman trilogy can be regarded as my enlightenment to superhero movies. Of course, enlightenment may also include the old version, Tobey's Spider-Man. Spider-Man and Batman are my two favorite superheroes. I don't like the Marvel movies that came later. I think I really love One Piece. Let's get back to the point. Let me say something from my heart. This book now has 15,000 collections. It's just a little short of the Senji Strong recommendation. It didn't make it. It's a pity. Otherwise, normally, I can write free chapters up to about 300,000 words. Remember, the better the performance, the longer the free period, about 300,000 words. The worse the performance, the longer the free period, about 300,000 words. It's neither good nor bad. It can only be put on the shelves after 200,000 words. This book is a standard neither good nor bad. I estimated that there are about 1,000 followers, and the first subscription is about 700 to 800. The average subscription should be able to barely pass 500. If I can't even get this result with 15,000 collections, I will really be mentally broken. I wrote novels in college, purely for entertainment. I have a vision for the future, but I have no idea about the royalties. I earned about 30,000 yuan in 4 years. On average, it is 600 yuan per month in 4 years. Multiply it by 5 to equal my living expenses. 600 yuan is at most my monthly cigarette money. I can only get a massage twice and a half when I go out. Of course, it is a very serious massage and foot washing. I'm a serious person and don't do anything messy. Laughs. The reason why I can continue to write with such a small amount of royalties is because there is no pressure in life. But now that I have graduated from college, I suddenly feel the pressure of life from all aspects, and I feel powerless. I feel that my only skill is to write novels. I have reached the age where I shouldn't ask my parents for money. To be honest, I have been idle at home for more than a year, since the day I left school, because I said I would go abroad at the beginning, but later I was affected by the epidemic, and decided not to go abroad. At that time, it had been delayed for more than half a year. Now I plan to take the civil service exam, but the situation is complicated. Anyway, I didn't pass the exam. I plan to sign up for a class, and prepare seriously again. To be honest, I spend a lot of money on myself, but it seems to be in vain. This feeling is really helpless. I feel that it is not my parents who are not strong, but I'm not striving. No one wants to disappoint their parents. My family is not a rich family, but a well-off family. In 2020, everyone has escaped poverty. For now, I seem to be able to comfort myself by writing novels. I also want to make some money by my own ability. So, I hope everyone can subscribe and give me a first order. Although I have only written 1.5 chapters now, I will try to update a few more chapters tomorrow. Anyway, I will post as much as I write today. 3 chapters are guaranteed, and 5 chapters are upper limit. I really can't write more. That's it. I said it 3 times. Please subscribe. Please vote for the monthly book. Please subscribe. Please vote for the monthly book. Please subscribe. Please vote for the monthly book. I was so cautious that I even found a new editor in charge. I checked with Blue Light Giant, and it should be available tomorrow. If the VIP chapter is not available tomorrow, I will look back at this post and I will be so embarrassed that I will die. Exclamation mark. Chapter 95 Natasha. New assistant. The premiere was over. The movie is good. Tony, who was always arrogant, took the initiative to find Anton and said, "Next week I will fulfill the bet and hold a party for you in Los Angeles." After that, he snorted and turned to leave. Anton was stunned, watching Tony get in the car and leave, with a smile on his face. Bet. The original bet with Tony. Anton almost forgot about it, but since Tony mentioned it, he certainly couldn't ignore it. Speaking of which, Tony should have updated his battle suit at this time, the Mark II, and the Mark III that was put into actual combat. Anton thought to himself, thinking of the news about Gumilla that he saw not long ago. If I'm not mistaken, Iron Man has actually been born. However, Tony Stark obviously hasn't dealt with Obadiah Stane yet, and doesn't even know the existence of Obadiah, the traitor, so there is no real famous scene. At least now, everyone knows nothing about what Iron Man is. Anton, the audience's feedback on Cyborg is very good. Suddenly, Jim's voice rang in his ears. Besides, Cyborg's novels and comics were already on the market a month ago, and they have a good momentum, so they have accumulated some popularity. It is conceivable that this will be another box office hit. Jim was excited. Even Tony Stark, who has not appeared for so long, came to attend the premiere. This will be big news. He became more and more excited as he spoke, and was very satisfied with his decision to join DC. This was probably the most proud decision of his later life. Very good. Increase the publicity efforts. I will see the results the next day. After Anton gave an order, he had no interest in staying any longer, so he left the venue and prepared to return to New York. Betty followed him all the time. In the car, Betty handed him a document with several resumes with photos attached. These are several candidates for the position of your personal assistant. Anton's personal assistant was supposed to be Betty, but he was used to being a hands-off boss, and he didn't pay much attention to the affairs of DC. Therefore, as his right-hand man, Betty has been busy at DC during this period, taking charge of the work that should have been done by Anton, but she had no time to continue to serve as his personal assistant. After the two discussed, they had to find someone to fill the vacancy. Anton took the resume, flipped through it casually, and stopped at a beautiful face. After a moment of silence, he suddenly laughed. "She's the one." Anton picked out the resume and handed it to Betty. "Tell this woman named Natasha to go to work tomorrow." Betty had a blank expression. Looking at the beautiful face in the photo, she could be said to have expected Anton's choice. On the night of the Green Goblin incident, after he had a conflict with Hawkeye and taught Hawkeye a lesson, Anton was thinking about when the people from S.H.I.E.L.D. would find him again. Sure enough, only a few days later, S.H.I.E.L.D. took action. The one they sent out was actually the famous Black Widow. Anton was a little flattered. Logically speaking, S.H.I.E.L.D. could not say that Batman's true identity was 100% certain, but at least it could lock the suspect on him with a high probability. After all, as early as after the Life Foundation incident, Coulson took the initiative to find him on behalf of S.H.I.E.L.D. At that time, Coulson had already regarded him as Batman in the conversation with him. Although Anton cut off a little connection with Batman's identity and cleared some suspicions with the celebration party of Batman's global box office of $600 million soon after, Anton did not think that S.H.I.E.L.D. would reduce its suspicion of him because of some preconceived impressions. However, even if S.H.I.E.L.D. believed that Anton was Batman 90%, there was still 10% uncertainty. You know, after leaving the Life Foundation, in any communication with S.H.I.E.L.D., Anton never took the initiative to reveal that he was Batman. Even in the Kingpin incident and the Green Goblin incident, when he took the initiative to contact S.H.I.E.L.D., he communicated as Batman, not Anton. There was a tacit understanding between him and S.H.I.E.L.D. At this time, S.H.I.E.L.D. sent Black Widow to apply for his personal assistant, probably thinking of getting close to him. At the same time, see if he can really win him over. Just like in the original plot, Black Widow applied to be Tony Stark's assistant. One more thing. Betty suddenly continued, Stark Industries stock price has risen. We have made a lot of money. Should we sell them all? Rising? Anton said nonchalantly. How much more can it rise? It's not the right time yet. Keep holding. I said before that you can consider buying it for the long term. It has risen back by nearly half. Are you sure you don't want to sell? Betty was puzzled. She didn't know where Anton got his confidence in Stark Industries from. Those who paid attention to Stark Industries knew that Tony Stark had been sidelined by the board of directors. Now, Abade Stain, a veteran of Stark Company, controlled the board of directors and became the actual controller of Stark Industries. But without Tony Stark's Stark Industries, the stock price is estimated to be able to rise back so much, basically reaching the current peak, and it is impossible to return to the original market value. Why did it rise so much? Anton did not explain, but was slightly surprised. What has Abade done recently? He announced that Stark Industries will not close its weapons manufacturing department. At the same time, he invested in the energy industry and reached a cooperation with Dr. Olivier Octavius's Ocmax company to realize an artificial Sunday. Betty said, Drive Otto is a top figure in the energy industry. His artificial sun experiment has been planned for many years. If it can be successfully realized, it may liberate mankind from oil energy. At that time, people will usher in a brand new future. She paused and continued, this plan makes people generally optimistic about the future of Stark Industries. If Dr. Otto realizes the artificial sun, Stark Industries can become a big boss in the energy industry and achieve monopoly, even if it loses the arms business. Drive Otto? Artificial sun? Anton looked strange. He never thought that Abade would get together with Dr. Octopus. These two people have nothing in common. Wait. Anton came to his senses and thought of the original plot, in which Abade dragged the Mark I suit developed by Tony from the desert back to New York, but because of the lack of energy to drive it, he had to take away Tony's heart. He suddenly understood. Abade really got smarter. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96 Artificial Sun. Abade and Dr. Octopus. Obadiah Stan did not completely break up with Tony and smash his own golden egg as in the original plot, but tried his best to hide the evidence of his murder of Tony. Because he found huge benefits from Tony. The arc reactor is one. Mark 1 is another. The latter has been mastered by Obadiah, and the arc reactor, which is the former, is the key to starting Mark 1. But this key was tightly grasped in Tony's hand and he refused to let go. Since the arc energy reactor cannot be obtained from Tony, then find another way. After several twists and turns, Obadiah found Olivia Octavius, who was studying the artificial sun, referred to as Otto, or Dr. Octopus. Although Otto is a top figure in the industry, and has the capital to choose a cooperative enterprise, he will not stupidly refuse the cooperation request of a behemoth like Stark Industries. It is conceivable that with the help of Stark Industries, the success of the artificial sun will definitely have a positive impact. So, the two hit it off. Obadiah is waiting for the realization of the artificial sun to provide driving energy for the suit that he dragged back to New York and renamed Ironmonger. At the same time, if Ironmonger can be mass produced, Stark Industries will dominate the arms industry. Also because of the investment in the artificial sun, Stark Industries will naturally become the leader of the energy industry. As for his collaborators, Dr. Octopus and Otto, they can also change the energy industry and the way of life of mankind because of the success of the artificial sun and become one of the greatest scientists in the world. Two villains gathered. I don't know if Tony can handle it. However, Anton originally planned to leave Obadiah to him for sublimation, but now there is another Dr. Octopus. It is not just a problem for Iron Man. Of course, Stark Industries and Dr. Octopus's company Oakmax are both in New York. Spider-Man, Daredevil, Ninja Turtles and other heroes are in New York at any time, so there is no need to worry about the situation getting out of control. Since it hasn't started yet, let it develop first. Anyway, there is no way to convict these two people now. The most important thing is that in terms of combat power, these two people are not particularly powerful characters, and they can be suppressed with a flip of the hand. Anton closed his eyes and thought quietly. Soon, he and Betty got on the plane and returned to New York. The next day, a red-haired woman walked into DC. Her beautiful face and curvy figure attracted the attention of many people. It was not until this woman walked into Anton's office that they retracted their reluctant gazes and showed regret and envy. It seems that this woman is the boss's newly hired assistant. Are you Natasha Romanoff? Anton sat in the boss's chair, crossed his legs, looked at the woman in front of him, and a smile appeared on the corner of his lips. The real person of Black Widow is more attractive than the photo in the resume. Yes. Natasha smiled and gave Anton the feeling of an urban beauty. She even put on the all uniform, and she really loves her job. I think the costume of Catwoman in the Batman movie might be more suitable for you. Anton thought for a moment, restrained his smile, and nodded to her. Go and get familiar with the work. I hope you can adapt to your work as soon as possible. Understood. Natasha nodded, without saying anything more, turned around and left the office. Natasha did not take any special actions when they met for the first time, but planned to work honestly for a few days before talking about it. First of all, she had to get familiar with Anton and gain his favor, so as to facilitate the next action. Although there are many ways to get familiar with each other, Natasha believed that as a woman, it is not difficult to gain a man's favor with her appearance. After a moment, Natasha seemed to have grasped the context of the work. With the aura of a professional woman, she stepped on high heels, holding the first day box office statistics of the movie Cyborg, twisting her slender waist, and found Anton again to report the situation. The total box office revenue of Cyborg on the first day in China was 54.3 million. This result did not exceed that of Batman Begins, and it was even far from enough, but Anton was still satisfied. There are many factors for the success of Batman. More may be attributed to the help of Tony Stark. When the movie was released, Tony Stark was the investor, providing a lot of topics for the movie to hype. During the release, when the box office showed a slump, Tony Stark disappeared in Afghanistan, and his life and death were uncertain. Anton naturally gave Batman Begins a title of Tony's posthumous work, which attracted a lot of attention. I don't know how many people walked into the cinema because of the words Tony's posthumous work and then became fans of Batman. With such support from Tony, it would be unreasonable for Batman Begins not to be successful. Cyborg did not have this treatment. The only investor who had some overlapping settings with Tony, Harry Osborn, was unable to stand up and shout for the movie because of the internal struggle of the Osborn group. However, as the film expands its publicity, it will subtly affect the black community. This film, which uses black people as its core selling point and is of high quality, should be able to have an influence that is not weaker than the mystery of the paranormal and may even surpass the mystery of the paranormal. In the previous life, the Marvel movie Black Panther, which has the same essential attributes as Cyborg, exploded with energy in the local market, but it exceeded everyone's imagination. The niche has its own way of selling, and the mass has its own way of selling. Cyborg takes into account both the niche and the mass. It has both popcorn scenes, and can take care of the collective sense of the niche group. There is no possibility of failure. Anton is very confident about the subsequent box office trend. He looked at the fan value of Cyborg in the system space 4.7 million. It is conceivable that the story about Cyborg, which has successfully attracted the attention of many people in the entertainment industry such as novels and comics, will use the movie as a fuse after the movie is released, completely detonating this hype, causing the fan value of Cyborg itself to increase wildly. In addition, Cyborg has been arranged to be released overseas simultaneously under the arrangement of the distribution company. If the domestic box office can achieve great success, the overseas box office will certainly not be bad, at least above the average level. Anton estimated that with this growth trend, it will not take long for Cyborg's fan value to break through 20 million as he wished. At that time, his second vest will appear naturally, including Cyborg. He also checked the fan value of other heroes and got a surprising answer. The rest of the stories about Wonder Woman, Flash, Superman, Aquaman, and other heroes have been serialized on the novel website of the Daily Bugle. In addition, the comics of these main tasks have also received a lot of attention on the internet. But among these people, the most famous and the one with the most fans is not Superman, who is strongly promoted by the company, or even the only female hero who has appeared so far, Wonder Woman, but Green Arrow. Oliver Queen. Green Arrow fan value 6.89 million. Superman 3.2 million. Flash 2.6 million. Wonder Woman 2.16 million. Aquaman 1.98 million. The above characters, excluding Cyborg and Batman, all have over 1 million fans, but their fan value is pitifully low. Green Arrow has nearly 7 million fans, far ahead of other heroes. This surprised Anton. Movie adaptation is a huge selling point for heroes to attract fans. However, Anton never expected that Green Arrow could produce such an amazing performance without the promotion of film and television works. Chapter 97 Concept: War Fortress and Mind Transmission Device. In order to find out what was going on, Anton called the head of the publicity department. After hearing the explanation from the head, he suddenly realized something. The setting of Green Arrow is somewhat similar to that of Batman, and most of the settings overlap, which is equivalent to riding on the popularity of Batman. You know, the superhero with the most fans now is Batman. In addition to the Batman IP operated by DC, novels, comics, and even games, peripheral toys, etc., Batman's influence exceeds many people's imagination. DC is profitable. Green Arrow just caught the remaining market of Batman and attracted the attention of many Batman fans with the overlapping characters and stories. In addition, both parties come from the same company, and love for the Whole House is also close to the Whole House. It is for this reason that, although Green Arrow is only popular in the market in novels and comics, it can attract so many fans. So, I will have 2 vests soon. Anton felt what a fucking surprise. He did not forget that the fan value required to redeem Green Arrow is only 10 million. After all, Green Arrow is also a superhero. Although Anton chose Cyborg over Green Arrow because of his similar attributes to Batman, Green Arrow is more cost effective than Cyborg. In the next half month, we will increase the promotion of Green Arrow. I want to see the results as soon as possible. Anton told the company manager to adjust the plan. Understood. The company manager nodded. Then, Anton thought about it, got up and left the company, went up 1 floor, and came to the Daily Bugle. As his personal assistant, Natasha was always by his side. The two came to Eddie's office. "Anton, why is there another beautiful woman around you?" Eddie was amazed when he saw Natasha. "She is my newly hired assistant. You know, Betty is very busy recently. After Cyborg is released, she will have more work to do." Anton explained casually. "Her name is Natasha." "Hello." Natasha extended her hand to Eddie. The two shook hands. "Go out, I have something to tell Eddie," Anton ordered. Seeing Natasha leave the office, he looked at Eddie and said, "Help me investigate someone." "Who?" Eddie was curious. Usually, when Anton said something like this, it meant that there was something to do next. "Drive Stockman," Anton said. "He studies teleportation technology and has proposed many advanced theories in this area. Help me check this guy." Teleportation technology. Eddie was a little surprised. It was not the first time he had heard of it, but it was something that could only be realized in a dozen or even dozens of years. He has something extraordinary in his hands. Anton did not mind revealing more to Eddie and said, "Similar to the venom in your body, they are all things from outer space." "You mean, teleportation technology is real?" Eddie opened his eyes wide and showed a stunned expression. Such a bizarre technology actually exists, which made Eddie a little surprised. Are he and Anton living on the same Earth? "It's true, but it's alien technology," Anton said. "This technology shouldn't be in the hands of someone like Stockman. And I have another idea. From aliens, like Darkseid in the Cyborg movie." Eddie thought of the movie Cyborg that he watched with his girlfriend April yesterday, which is Ending's new movie. He was a little surprised and asked, "What do you think?" "The Justice League should have a base. If we can get a teleportation device, it will be of great help to us." Anton smiled slightly. He had an idea as early as after seeing the Ninja Turtles. Recalling the movie he had seen in his previous life, in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Out of the Shadows, the last villain, the alien Lang, used teleportation technology to drag the huge sphere called War Fortress from outer space far away to the Earth. He felt that the War Fortress was very suitable as the base of the Justice League, with the matching teleportation device. In the future, every member of the Justice League will have the ability to arrive in time and be on call when they are about to go out to solve a crisis. This level of alien black technology needs to be mastered in one's own hands. Of course, Lang in the movie of the previous life was easy to deal with, but since this is the real world, Anton can't treat Lang casually. He is an alien fugitive who has done many evil things. After thinking it over again and again, Anton plans to exchange the steel bone, gather all the existing members of the Justice League, find a deserted place, use the telepathy technology, let Lang come to the Earth, defeat him, and then take away his life's accumulation, a huge sphere, that is, a war fortress. You know, with the brain of the steel bone, it is not difficult to control the alien. No matter which world is set, the steel bone itself has the ability to connect and crack alien technology. By the way, as far as I know, the telepathy device is divided into 3 parts, and the 3 parts are combined into one to be complete. Now, in addition to the part in the hands of Dr. Stockman, there is another part in the New York Museum. Eddie, find a way to get it. What about the rest of the part? Eddie was curious. In the tropical rainforest of Brazil. Anton looked strange and shrugged. "This is a huge workload. Are you sure we can find it?" Eddie opened his eyes wide. The New York Museum is not a big deal, but the Brazilian rainforest is so big, who knows where exactly it is. This requires the help of Dr. Stockman. Anton smiled. "Hasn't Phil been experimenting with his own equipment recently?" He said. "Let Phil pretend to be a villain and go to Stockman to cooperate. This is the first task we give him. If he can complete it successfully, the Justice League will have no reason to reject him." "That makes sense." Eddie laughed. "If it is true as Anton said, if the teleportation device is assembled, Phil will be the #1 hero since the establishment of the Justice League." The two of them looked at each other and threw the trouble to Phil without any prior agreement. "That's it. Let me know when there is any situation." Anton said goodbye and left the office. Outside the door, Natasha straightened her back, making her breasts look even taller. A group of employees of the Daily Bugle looked at this woman and swallowed their saliva, feeling that their boss Anton was worthy of being Tony Stark's friend, and he always met such a beautiful woman. Creak. The door of the editor-in-chief's office of the Daily Bugle was pushed open. "Let's go." After Anton came out, he glanced at Natasha, and the two returned to DC Company downstairs. It was time to get off work. Anton packed up and prepared to go home. Whether intentionally or unintentionally, he ran into Natasha. He called his personal assistant. "Ms. Romanoff, are you interested in having a drink with me?" "Sure." Natasha did not refuse and gave him a charming smile. Chapter 98. The party is in progress. First meeting with a baddie. A bar in Manhattan. "Natasha, has anyone ever told you that you look like someone?" Anton suddenly spoke up under the psychedelic music, looking at the red-haired woman beside him. "Who?" Natasha clinked glasses with him. "Catwoman from the Batman movie." Anton looked Natasha up and down, his eyes lingering on her exquisite curves for a few seconds, and smiled. "You give me the feeling of Catwoman, with a different kind of charm. Of course, the most important thing is your figure. So, you really want to see me in Catwoman's clothes?" Natasha smiled charmingly, then her face changed and turned cold in an instant, and she said solemnly, "I'm not a casual woman. Let's stop here today, boss." As soon as the voice fell, she stood up and left decisively, twisting her waist to leave the bar and disappearing in front of Anton. "Anton, there are women you can't handle." The bartender was an old acquaintance of Anton. Seeing this, he smiled and poured him another glass of wine. "This glass of wine is for you." The waiter smiled and said, "I wish you a good dream on this lonely night." "Lonely?" Anton snorted coldly. "Do you believe that, if I wave my hand, women who want to sleep with me will squeeze through this bar? If you insist on saying that, then I have nothing to say." The waiter shrugged. "Let's go." Anton got up and left the bar. He saw Natasha just got into a taxi and left. There was no expression of anger or shame on her face. Instead, she watched the taxi go away with interest. Anton didn't believe that the famous Natasha would be so angry because of a teasing word. Obviously, this is a trick of women playing hard to get. "Sooner or later, I will let you wear Catwoman's clothes." Anton touched his chin, laughed, waved his hand, and also stopped a taxi and prepared to go home. At the same time, in the taxi where Natasha was. "How is it?" The driver was communicating with her. "Did you find anything?" If Anton was here, he would recognize at a glance that this driver was the hawky Clint Barton, who was ravaged by him not long ago. "He looks like a playboy." Natasha shook her head, then thought for a while and said, "However, he had a conversation with Eddie at the Daily Bugle today. I don't know what they talked about specifically, but I don't think it's anything important. Maybe a work order." "Then if he is really Batman, do you think it is possible for him to be recruited into the superhero team that the director wants to establish?" Hawkeye asked again. "Not sure, but I think Batman is not a guy who is inferior to others. Every time he appears, he occupies a dominant position." Natasha said, looking at Hawkeye, and then said, "Moreover, emotionally, you don't seem to want Batman to join in. Agents never act according to emotions." Hawkeye said expressionlessly, "If he can help us, I don't mind being his colleague. Of course, this doesn't prevent me from finding him again to compete with him." "Okay." Natasha shrugged, indicating that it didn't matter. A few days later, Anton saw Natasha, who was like nothing happened, and came to work as usual in the company these days. Not only did she quickly get along with her colleagues in the company, but she also smiled at him at work. He didn't show any emotion on his face, but he knew in his heart that Black Widow was not so easy to take down. Although the anger that night was Natasha's disguise, it didn't mean that he could do anything to this woman simply by relying on his identity as a rich kid and a boss. Then again, in the previous Marvel Cinematic Universe, how did the Hulk Bruce Banner hook up with the Black Widow? Anton didn't think that the Hulk could talk about physics with the Black Widow in bed every day. Ding dong. Suddenly, a message came from his mobile phone. It was from Tony Stark. Somewhat surprised, he opened it and saw that it was Tony's invitation to a party tonight. After a moment of hesitation, Anton stood up and told Natasha, "Get my private plane ready, I'm going to Los Angeles immediately." After saying this, he looked at the woman in front of him and suddenly said, "I'm short of a female companion tonight. Natasha, are you free?" "Of course." Natasha hesitated for a moment, thinking of the recent message from Carlson, and nodded. Then, she changed the subject, but don't try to do anything to me. I've never been a bastard who forces women. Anton spread his hands. You don't distrust the character of your boss so much, do you? Night. Los Angeles. The waves cheered beside the mansion near the cliff, and the moonlight above was like a waterfall. Celebrities gathered at Tony Stark's mansion. Knowing that Tony held his first party after his return, many reporters wanted to sneak in, and the brave ones even wanted to sneak in, but without exception, they were blocked and sent to the Los Angeles Police Department. Only a few beautiful female reporters, with their own capital, got their wish by hooking up with rich kids. At this time, Anton, dressed in a suit and full of elite aura, and Natasha, dressed in a gorgeous dress, came to the door of the mansion and successfully passed the security guard's blockage and Jarvis's identification. He saw Tony surrounded by beautiful women at a glance. In addition, there were also his friends who had often met at parties before. Anton, long time no see. You haven't come to our party recently. You actually beat Tony Stark and made me win millions of dollars. Good job, brother. The friends took a look at the stunning Natasha, then retracted their gazes and greeted Anton, who had become a recognized big director. Anton responded with a smile, then saw Tony, so he greeted him and went to where Tony was. A group of people watched him leave, then looked at each other and winked at each other. Friends, do you want to continue our bet today? We don't need to draw lots this time. I bet on Anton. No, I still think Tony will be better. There was an old bald man next to Tony. The two were talking about something. Anton recognized at a glance that this guy was Abadi Astain, the mastermind behind Tony's disappearance in Afghanistan for 3 months. Hey, Anton. When Abadi saw Anton, he seemed to be the host here, showing a host smile and introducing himself. I'm Abadi. Hello. Anton shook hands with him and smiled. I have heard of you for a long time. The chief executive of Stark Industries. You are a well-known big shot. The Daily Bugle and DC are both high-quality assets, and young people are much more energetic than us. Abadi greeted with a smile. I think Stark Industries and the Daily Bugle will have many opportunities for cooperation in the future. By the way, as if thinking of something, Abadi paused and continued. In half a month, Stark Industries will join hands with Oakmax to conduct a public experiment of the artificial sun experiment in New York. I hope the Daily Bugle can participate in this experiment. You are the favorite newspaper of New York citizens. Of course. Anton narrowed his eyes and nodded. Well, you guys chat. I, an old man, will not participate in the conversation of you young people. After speaking, Abadi left to greet other guests, leaving the place for Anton and Tony. Chapter 99 Tony, I'm really out of my mind. Anton was a little surprised when he saw Abadi holding a glass of wine and walking to the other people with a smile on his face. Abadi and Dr. Octopus Otto's artificial sun experiment was about to begin so soon. So, after the Green Goblin incident and the destruction of the Bigfoot gang, the citizens of New York are about to face a new crisis? Too miserable. Too difficult. New York is really the most dangerous city in the universe, without a doubt. There is a crisis every 3 or 5 days. If anyone goes to New York to be a contractor and specializes in post-disaster reconstruction business, he will definitely become a billionaire within 3 to 5 years. Anton touched his chin. Anton, you have really impressed me recently. Tony stared at the old acquaintance in front of him, thinking of the tit-for-tat more than half a year ago, and thinking of the other party's current changes. He had to admit that everyone is growing. Even he can make up his mind, let alone Anton Jameson. Of course, Anton has transformed from a prodigal son to a genius director. Such a change makes Tony even more confused. In addition, Batman, who has recently become popular all over the United States and even spread to other countries, is also the focus of Tony's attention. As we all know, Anton is a controller of the Daily Bugle. The Daily Bugle has a close relationship with Batman. Anton is even the director of the movie Batman Begins. In other words, Batman can be said to be created by Anton. Although it is rumored on the internet that he also participated in part of the creation of Batman Begins, only Tony himself knows that the movie Batman Begins has nothing to do with him and is led by Anton. Through Jarvis's information comparison of Anton, there is a 70% possibility that Anton is Batman. The other 30%, on the one hand, is because compared with Anton's previous personality, plus his own experience and personal ability, Batman is too different from him. On the other hand, it is because on the night of the celebration party for Batman's global box office exceeding 600 million, Anton and Batman appeared in two places at the same time. For the latter, Tony does not think that this can be denied, and Anton is the absolute evidence of Batman. After all, if Tony wanted, he could let Jarvis control the Mark suit and fly to New York to do justice while he enjoyed the party. Then, it seemed that there was only one choice left. Anton is Batman. This possibility made Tony feel even more incredible, and it was simply against scientific principles. After knowing Anton for such a long time, Tony could not see at all that Anton was a guy with the potential to become a superhero. He became like this because of his life and death experience, his top-notch mind, and his awareness after escaping death. What does Anton have? How could he be Batman? Tony couldn't convince himself to accept this, so he held this party, intending to get close to Anton and see if Anton had really changed since he disappeared. However, the first time Tony saw Anton, he felt that Anton would not be Batman, just based on the woman next to Anton. Tony felt that he could make a judgment that Anton was still a playboy. This woman was so beautiful, and there seemed to be a seductive charm all over her body, which made people feel hot all over. It's not strange at all that Anton has this woman by his side. This is all thanks to your support, Tony. Anton smiled and greeted his old friend in front of him. This is the first party. After you return safely, we can't just stand here. He paused and pointed to the side. Look, they're betting on the two of us again. Do you want to continue our bet? Tony suddenly spoke. Although he thought Anton couldn't be Batman, he was cautious and still wanted to test Anton. If you want. Anton shrugged. I invited the 10 most famous cover girls of Playboy magazine in the past year. Tony said, looking at Natasha next to Anton, flicking his mustache and squinting his eyes and smiling. If you can find them in front of me and take them all away, I will consider myself the loser this time. You don't seem to be planning to compete with me? Anton looked at Tony in surprise, as if surprised by Tony's decision. I have found someone who suits me. Tony remained calm and subconsciously glanced at Chili, who was greeting guests with a little warmth in his eyes. It seems that you are about to enter the grave of marriage. Anton shrugged, let go of his hand from Natasha's slender waist, and smiled. But I wish you all the best. Congratulations on finding true love. After that, he turned and walked towards the nearest cover girl. He doesn't seem to care about you, beautiful lady. Tony narrowed his eyes and looked at Natasha in front of him. My name is Natasha. Natasha introduced herself and then said calmly, without any shame, he is just my boss. Really? Tony nodded in disapproval and turned to see that Anton had already brought the first cover girl to find the second one. The two women, each with their own merits, were amused by Anton and laughed repeatedly. Then, the three found the fourth, then the fifth, and the sixth. Until about half an hour later, Anton came to Tony with 10 cover girls. Tony, this time I'll take it as you surrender. What an unfair victory. Surrounded by 10 top beauties, Anton held one in each hand and smiled very happily. At this time, Natasha still had a smile on her face. She glanced at Anton and the 10 cover girls around him and began to doubt whether the news from S.H.I.E.L.D. was accurate. It seems that Anton and Batman's behavior patterns are completely different. She didn't know that Tony Stark beside her had already ruled out a certain option in his heart. Tony looked at Anton, who was proud in front of him, and his face and mouth twitched a few times without a trace. How could I think this guy was Batman? It must be because I have been back for so long, and the damage caused by the concussion has not healed. Good luck tonight. Tony said hello to Anton calmly, came to the corner, and instructed Jarvis. Jarvis, help me send a message to my private doctor and ask him to bring professional equipment to check my brain tomorrow morning. He cursed in a low voice. Damn it, my brain is my most valuable thing, and there can't be any problems. Tony, why did you call a private doctor? Pepper just heard Tony's instructions to Jarvis, and her face changed immediately. It's okay. Tony hurriedly comforted. Routine check. On the other side, Anton looked at Natasha. Maybe we should go back to the hotel. Are you sure? Natasha looked at the 10 cover girls around Anton and said, I don't want to disturb you. No, we plus you 12 people, just make up 3 Imagine tables. Anton laughed. Under the envious and jealous eyes of a group of people, he led Natasha and 11 beauties to a hotel in Los Angeles and played Imagine all night. After a night, Anton even won tens of thousands of dollars. By the way, don't ask why there are Imagine machines in hotels in Los Angeles. Or 3 Imagine machines. Just ask if you have money. Chapter 100, Green Arrow. An unexpected reward. The next day, Anton came out of the hotel refreshed, and with the joy of winning money, he took the return flight. Natasha naturally followed him. And the girls who played Imagine with him all night, all smiled and left the hotel, ready to welcome the next job. Although they lost money, they gained Anton's promise, and got the movie invitation from DC. Even if it was just a vase roll, it was enough to take their careers to the next level. Movie stars are almost at the top of the contempt chain in the entertainment industry. This is a position that most people look up to. On the other side, Tony got up early and received a physical examination from a private doctor. After confirming that there was nothing wrong with his body, especially his brain was extremely normal, he returned to the private experimental area in the basement with confidence and continued to study his iron suit. After contacting Anton, Tony temporarily gave up his exploration and curiosity about Batman because of Anton's excellent performance. For him, the most urgent task was to kill all the cruel thugs within the range of Gumi. Secondly, it was to conduct an internal investigation in secret. Tony was determined to find out who in Stark Industries had the guts to sell weapons to those hateful terrorists. In fact, he already had a candidate in mind. Thinking about the fact that his voice in Stark Industries had almost been lost recently, the company's veteran, Abade Stain, basically sidelined himself in the board of directors and continued the layout of the weapons department. Tony was a little reluctant to believe this result, but when he had time, it was time to find out the facts and settle the grudges. On the private plane to New York, Natasha sat behind Anton, looking at the back of Anton's head. Her face was calm, but her heart was becoming more and more suspicious. What Anton did really didn't look like the Batman who was like a king descending. Of course, the possibility of disguise could not be ruled out. Natasha pondered carefully and recalled the contact in the past few days. If Anton was really pretending, he would be a really good actor. There is another possibility. It is not ruled out that this is Batman's nature. Soon, the two came out of the New York airport. By the time they got back to DC, it was already afternoon. Soon, it would be time to get off work. Anton was thinking whether to invite Natasha to the bar again tonight. Suddenly, Natasha knocked on the door of her office. "Boss, someone wants to see you," she said calmly. "Who?" Anton narrowed his eyes and saw something unusual in Natasha's seemingly normal tone. "He said his name is Carlson, and he's your old friend," Natasha replied. "Let him in." Anton nodded and looked at Natasha deeply. His face was expressionless, but his eyes were meaningful. Soon, a man with a very high hairline appeared in Anton's office. Natasha was tactful and did not go in. She stood outside the door, closed the door for them, and waited quietly. "Anton, nice to see you again." Carlson smiled and greeted politely, saying frankly, "This time I came here for the Lizard Man and the Green Goblin. You should go to Batman for this matter." "What does it have to do with me, Anton?" Anton asked back. He looked relaxed and comfortable, sitting in the boss chair, with his hands on his chest and his chin raised, looking a bit domineering. "Then when can I see Batman?" Carlson still smiled gently. It is rare to see the strong side of S.H.I.E.L.D. in him. It is probably because of Carlson's personal charm that his death in the New York War has become more meaningful. In the original plot, if it was the black-boiled egg Nick Fury who fell to the street, Iron Man, Captain America and others probably would not have time to care, but would continue to be busy fighting for the right to speak. Even in Captain America 2, when the news of Nick Fury's death came out, except Hawkeye and Black Widow, others were just shocked, at most with a little regret, and few people felt very sad. "I'll help you make an appointment with him." Anton was very calm. After thinking for a while, he said lightly, "But he may not want to see you now." "Okay." Carlson nodded. "I will be in New York for the next half month. I hope Batman can contact me." I have something important to discuss with him. Half a month. Anton suddenly remembered that a Badia told him at Tony's party that the public experiment of artificial sun would be held in half a month. Did SHIELD receive the news in advance? Or maybe their goal is not the artificial sun, but a Badia stain who has great expectations for the artificial sun experiment. After a moment of silence, Anton glanced at Carlson and felt that this guy had a hint. After a few simple exchanges, Carlson was sure that his words could be made known to Batman. So he said goodbye and left. Immediately afterwards, Natasha walked into the office. "Boss, Cyborg is a big hit at the box office, and now the global box office has exceeded 300 million. She reported a good news to Anton. Anton took a look at Cyborg's fan value, which has reached 12.62 million. There are less than 8 million left, and Cyborg will be born smoothly. How is the recent publicity effect?" Anton asked casually. The appearance of Cyborg has aroused widespread attention in the black community. Many people think that it is a very correct decision to let black people become the protagonists of superhero movies. Now the general public is very optimistic about Cyborg's performance, Natasha said, and paused. Many box office websites have raised Cyborg's local box office forecast to 700 million and global box office to 1 billion. Not bad. Although Anton is not interested in the black community, he must thank them for their help. Then he asked, "How is the situation of Green Arrow?" After intensive publicity, Green Arrow's performance has increased significantly. The benefits of these few days are about the sum of the previous month, Natasha said. DC was founded not long ago and is not a big company, but the several existing works, led by the already popular Batman, have great potential. Especially the Green Arrow, whose settings partially overlap with Batman, has benefited from Batman. When one person succeeds, the whole family will prosper. And in the Cyborg movie, the Justice League revealed in the Easter egg has made many fans who have already paid attention to DC very excited. They can see that DC intends to link its works to form a superhero team. Justice League. The name has been revealed in the Easter egg. In addition, what kind of sparks will be created when the two superheroes Batman and Cyborg meet? And the alien invasion revealed in the Easter egg. Darkseid. Who is that? This is so cool. Everyone was scratching their heads, eagerly looking forward to the joint works of DC. Okay, I see. You go out and let me be quiet for a while. Anton rubbed his temples, as if he wanted to yawn again, with a listless look on his face. After Natasha left, he regained his original calm. Looking at the system panel in front of him, a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Of course he knew that Green Arrow's performance had an astonishing increase. No one can receive feedback faster than him. Because, in recent days, every moment, the numbers belonging to Green Arrow's fan value have been changing and increasing. Green Arrow fan value. 10.23 million. This means that his next vest has actually come out. Thanks to 20210118200630137 right square bracket. FFF for the rewards. Thank you everyone. The next chapter should be in the evening. I had something to do yesterday and didn't have time to write. I've been a bit busy these past 2 days and my schedule has been completely messed up. Once I recover, I'll update 2 chapters a day from now on. Exclamation mark. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.